but I also want to be a punk about it. I want to be a little rude about it because that's hip hop. You know what I mean? That's being authentic and being outspoken. It's not just I'm a great rapper. It's I'm a better rapper than you.
Yeah, exactly.
Which,
yeah.
Game A, being young, being rambunctious, being rebellious, and being like, y'all don't get it. Y'all are missing something big here, and I'm gonna do this thing because y'all are missing it.
If I was just some boring dude going through a list,
so Gabriel, what is this ultra thing that you're doing?
This is very cool. I'm like, come on, no.
It's a good song. It's jokey. It's funny. It's silly first, and then oh by the way, I'm just gonna like whisper Game B like this. And you look at everybody else on the bus, and you're like, what are these stupid people? They don't even know about Game B. Really? And like, what is that? It's the exact same people as like the woke left. Like you are 99% Game A anyway. But like, let's not run from that. You do think you're smarter than everybody else. That isn't healthy, but it's also fine. The goal is to have a traveling circus, and I'm not ruling that out.
You're an idiot, Gabriel. You're a moron, okay?
I like being in places where it seems like I shouldn't be there. And
that's what I'm doing with it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like,
if you just do what feels right for you, right? If you're aligned with what you feel is right, you don't have to go through this therapy because what you're doing is your therapy.
And this is me talking to you right now saying you need to get up and change your life.
What if we're starting Game C right now?
Down at your doorstep. Can't explain the feeling that you give me. And all I know is I just want some more. Saw her for the second time. She said she hopes that she sees me soon. And I don't know what that means to you, but it seems to me that we've got something up both our sleeves, and I think I catch it.
Welcome back, lovely people. This must be your lucky day because today's release is episode number 7, and it's with Gabriel Jacob Luansing, aka Mr. Master. Now, if you couldn't already tell by the intro, episode title, and description, this one is not for those who are faint of heart in the sense-making community. We pretty much put a blowtorch to the entire space and call out everyone's BS, from the Kanyashanti preaching from their ivory towers to the Daniel Schmachtenberger impersonators sitting around in kumbaya circles all day. Disclaimer, I love all y'all, and trust me, there's no one more worthy of being called out for their BS than I am. But Gabe and I are just saying, you know, your shit stinks too. Much respect to Gabriel for coming on the show and going ham with me. This dude is so effing smart and on point. As I told him in our episode, he's the type of person that proves that you don't need to be some galaxy brain who regularly attends wisdom gyms over Zoom to be a super smart, well-adjusted human being. He's also ridiculously creative, what with his rapping, producing, singing, dancing, writing, musical instruments, theater. Puts me to shame. I got kicked out of my 4th grade recorder class because my playing was threatening my music teacher's sanity. Luckily, I don't try to play any instruments in this episode, but I may or may not be spitting some hot bars. So definitely stay tuned for that and more, where we go over how we can Trojan horse Game B using Game A, why obscurity can be a superpower, and how you first have to learn the rules in order to know how to break them. You can watch on YouTube. Be sure to like and let me know what you think in the comments, or listen on podcasts. Search for Noetic Nomads and rate us 5 stars. When you're done, go to noeticnomads.org for our exclusive article by Gabriel, where he goes over how we can pull the trigger and make the move from sense-making to change-making. And be sure to check out some of the awesome events and posts from members of the Nomads community. All right, here it is. Buckle up, because for some of you, it might be a little rough, but it'll definitely be worth the ride. Here is episode 7 with Gabriel Luansing, aka Mr. Master. Okay, we are recording. Welcome everyone to another episode of Noetic Nomads. I'm Albert Kim, and please allow me to introduce the guest today with something I prepared. Please don't judge me.
Too late.
Actually, it's okay. You can judge me. It's okay. All right, let's go. Okay. Nomads, welcome to the stage of Mr. Known as Master. Swooping your local drive-through girl, just ask her who she kissing now. Nerd, Cali, kid, she calling. Backpack, hoodie, Oja, killer, Bronco ballin'. Got the game unlocked, be live, infinite, level up, overclock, ultrasound, but killing kids. Kids is throwing fits, cause of that their syllabus. They call him master, cause he told them to, and they ain't saying shh. Nomads, give it up for the one, the only, Mr. Master.
Bang. Oh man.
I apologize so much for that. I know I was offbeat because I had these freaking earbuds in, but I mean, welcome. I apologize, but I mean, hopefully you got something out of that. So again,
I got a lot out of that. Thank you for.
don't worry,
Uh,
it's recorded, it's uploaded, so I'm sure a lot of people get a lot of that. So again,
Ugh.
I mean, thank you so much for coming on,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Massa.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
AKA Gabriel. I don't know how to pronounce your name correctly, so go ahead and educate us.
My name is Gabriel Jacob Luansing. They call me Mr. Master because I told them to, as you alluded to in your verse. Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, and so Gabriel, I mean, like, so just like can you inform our lovely audience how it came to be that you met this weirdo that's spitting rhymes over here?
Right. So the short version is I posted on the Rebel Wisdom community group, the digital campfire thing. I applied to be a member, joined, posted saying, hey, I'm a rapper. That was basically it. And then you commented saying, hey, I want to interview you. And I'm just like, okay, sure. Now that's the like shortest version. I could give the entire life story that led up to that moment.
I mean, you could give an hour. We could go into a little bit later. But like you came into like, so as you stated, you came into the circle. You introduced yourself, and you're promoting this project, which is very interesting, called Ultra. I mean, could you tell the audience about this thing?
Right. So I've been asked multiple times in my life, what is Ultra, and what. I like not having an answer because I have to figure out something on the spot. There's too many things to go. I don't just have it ready for you. It's like, this is like the elevator pitch of Ultra. Again, the simple version of it is it's a musical project that I began in 2017. I released 15 songs in this cartoonish style where the production is very cartoony. The lyrics are very jokey and intellectual leaning. And I released 15 songs initially, and then the following year I added 15 more. So it was an initial release, and then it's basically like an album that I've kept adding songs to, where it's just under the Ultra name this entire time. So it was the first 15, the second 15, and then now I've added songs individually to the point where now, after 3 some years, it sits at 57 songs.
Yeah, I just saw you added the most recent one. You just added it, right?
Yesterday.
One.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
it is constantly updating.
Yeah.
And that's it at the musical level. And a lot of it is based on innovation and approaching a lot of different things differently. One of them being that thing in terms of music release, where it is a project. I don't like calling it an album or a mixtape. It's like it's this ongoing thing.
It's just your own thing. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, and whether it's the release or, and I'm sure we'll get into the production style, the lyrics, and all these other things, and it's all built on the premise of innovation, and I want to do everything that I'm approaching different than it's ever been done. And also, when I say Ultra now, I refer to it half as the project itself, the music itself, and the thinking that has emerged thanks to the specific development process of Ultra, right? So with this innovative mindset within the music, it's translated elsewhere, right? And it's basically also shorthand for the way I think, as informed by this specific musical process. So when I say Ultra, it's kind of half the music itself and half just how the music has made me think. And there's so much overlap in there that when I say Ultra, it is kind of like I'm talking about both at the same time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, like, I saw you like talk about how like Ultra has like basically formed your identity at the same time reflexively your identity has formed Ultra. It's like this ongoing process. It's very interesting. Yes. So I mean, can you talk more about like how exactly that process has gone on since you started this project? How exactly has it shaped like your identity, and like how has your identity kind of fed back on it as this process is going on?
Ultra wasn't me crafting my identity from the ground up. It was me realizing how much of my identity was crafted to begin with. Why does the production sound the way it does? Because I like cartoons and I think the music is funny. I like the music, just the lushness, the full orchestral types of things. But also taking that superficial kind of passing infatuation with that kind of music and looking deeper into it. And so when the rumblings of Ultra first started going in like 2016-ish, when I was starting to like, the ball was kind of barely getting rolling in terms of ideas, I thought about that, of taking that jokey style of music and then putting drums on it, so the production style, but also not just because it was funny, but because of the images that are evoked by that kind of music, which is to say that 1950s retro futuristic picket fence, 2.5 kids, Jetsons flying cars, kinds of those imagery. And I took this superficial level, like, I just think this is funny. And then I looked a little bit deeper into it and crafted this little narrative of, oh my God, this is a way to look at the world and in turn myself through this specific lens that I don't think anybody's looking at it as hard as I'm trying to look at it, which is, it's just been that method applied to a bunch of other stuff. So like the color orange, the lyrics, it's like, so when I'm writing a song, it just kind of happens, right? Like the way that I talk about the music, it sounds like I'm planning something super whatever. But when I'm sitting to write a song, it's more just letting my mind go. And really, especially when I'm making a beat, but definitely when I'm writing the lyrics, until it's out, like it's finished and on SoundCloud, I feel like I tap into this kind of flow state where things just go. And this goes for like days, weeks, just working on this song and doing it kind of unconsciously, especially in the sessions of where I'm sitting down and writing or making a beat. It's just time goes, my mind is going. And then when I put it out, it's like, all right, now I'm no longer the artist, I am the listener, I am the interpreter. And I can look back at this thing that I kind of just did and try to guess what I was thinking at the time. What I was thinking at the time. What I think it was thinking at the time was nothing. But
exactly, yeah.
What if I can write the narrative such that, because life, to get kind of deep already, like it's kind of just stuff that happens and you're kind of just end up here. There's a way to write, if you want to get as truthful as possible, it's like, sure. Yeah. And a lot of trouble can arise from that chaos and that orderlessness. But what the music has taught me is that you can kind of craft your own order here. It's just been a building on top of that process. And like, as long as I've been working on Ultra, like I'll hit songs where I'm like, oh, this is what I was trying to do. If I were to name drop songs, like Camp Granada was a big one. After School Special was a big one. Big Finish was a big one. I've been especially thinking a lot recently. Inside Baseball was one where I was like, oh, this is what I was aiming for this whole time, right? No, it wasn't. Like when I'm just kind of doing stuff. But now it's like, oh, if I look back at this collection of songs and treat them as a whole, not as separate albums, right? If I see this as one continuous something and see each song as adding up to this next one or whatever, and like getting closer to this vision, it's like, oh, this actually makes sense. Like this is not just random songs, random things. It's just, this can make sense. Similarly, if I look back and treat my life as one continuous something and not like middle school, and then I went to high school and everything changed, and then I went to college and everything changed. It's like, there's a through line here. And because of that, I can go back now and point to stuff that happened in high school and middle school and be like, oh, that's not just something I forgot and it's not useful anymore. It's irrelevant, right? Like this actually led up to Ultra, right? Which is to say the music I'm making and also the person I am right now. That's one thing, kind of just superficial, like stuff just kind of happens. Like if you were to ask me about anything with the project, it's like the real answer is it kind of just happened. The magic was added afterwards to say, oh, let me take this thing that happened unconsciously and consciously say this is, and write the story such that it was a conscious decision. It wasn't, but what if it was? And I just built my entire identity and the musical project on top of what if me deciding to rap in middle school was the greatest decision I could have ever made.
Yeah, I mean, wow. Like, look, I so resonate with that because basically, I mean, where we're on Noetic Nomads, this was the culmination of everything. You know, it's just like, it's like, I was like, I did this, I was doing that. Like, for example, you know, about like 6 months ago, I was in New York City working for, you know, a big tech company, you know, started by ex-Google and Uber employees. And then it just like, I was like the best performer in the whole company. They're like, oh my God, we want to ship you to Boston. You want to head up our division? I was like, that's cool. But no, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, why? We're treating you so well. I'm like, it doesn't feel right. And then if you go, I wrote this on my website, like the bio of the origin story. And then like after that, I started working a minimum wage job because like I want to go to China. Why? Because it was like I was running away. It's just like you. It's like when you're in the process, you're doing this thing, but it's just like you don't really know you're doing it. It just happened. But to me, it was just like it was running away. And then this thing happened. This this COVID thing happens, and then I'm like I can't run away anymore. And then I go in here, Rebel Wisdom. I can't Rebel Wisdom, Sensemaking 101. I went to the store. I did a lot of personal work. And then I just really dug deep. And my goal for Sensemaking 101 is like, I want to find out who I am. I want to find out what's ticking it. I'm starting to figure it out. I'm not saying I'm going to figure out totally, because again, we're all in like perpetual states of becoming. I'm not a finished product. So I'm like, but then all of a sudden, one day I was like, boom, Noetic Nomads. All this came up in less than a month. So once I got it, boom. And then now all this crazy stuff is happening. So I mean, like, that's beautiful. I completely like. It's very funny. We're like we're vibing because it's like we're on that similar trajectory. And like with you just releasing Inside Baseball, you want to tell them a little bit about that and what led up to that?
Well, I want to say as well, just like what came to mind with what you were talking about with your story. It's interesting because I found myself in a similar place where I ended up in a position where I kind of was halted. Like I couldn't stop, and like I didn't actively be like, oh, let me like add, because I didn't always think like this, right? Like I was kind of, I'm 24. I was for a good amount of time, I was just kind of a college student, living life, being young and not thinking about stuff this deep. Yeah. And then I ran into a similar situation that was a lot of hardship. And I don't know if I want to go into it like too much.
Feel free,
but
it's
forced
all
me. Yeah. I mean, but it forced me to reflect on everything. And then it was before, like I started in 2017 and like 2018-ish, stuff kind of just derailed. And it forced me in a position where I was like, okay, I need to rethink everything about this. I need to figure out who I am. I need to figure out what this means. I stopped making music for a bit, for a couple months. And that meant that, right, like I was saying earlier, so I'm making the music, I'm the artist, I'm working. Stop, song is done. Now I'm the listener, time to interpret. So for a couple months, all I was the interpreter. And I was thinking about these, 32 songs I had on there and being like, okay, what does this even mean? From a place of almost like desperation, right? That really like I guess it was kind of a dark place, being like, what is this? Not like what does this mean? But like, what does this even mean, coming from that place? Really, and I came out of it like with an answer. And after that, it was like there's like a before and after when you're thinking like this, perhaps, right? Like I was talking to a friend about this recently. It might have been Tyson actually, and we might talk about it later. But like going meta, and how once you think about that, you can't really go back, so to speak. Once that really gets ingrained in you, it's like it's growing up, right? Like it's maturing and being like, okay, I'm not a kid anymore. I can't go back to that even if I tried, right? Like it's just more now. And so when you're talking about us relating, it's like that was another thing too that came to mind for me. It was like I did have a point too where I had to like enter this space, kind of this introspective. I really need to figure out my identity, not because wouldn't it be nice if I figured myself out, but it's like I really like from a really like place of tragedy and struggle, being like sometimes you have to be forced into that situation, and because you are, it like adds to the urgency and ups the stakes for why you should take it as seriously as you do. So that being said, Inside Baseball was the way that I understand the story, because again, that was like a couple weeks where, so Inside Baseball is a song. It is 18 minutes long. It is 320 bars of just raps. That's it. And I want to say it was like 2 weeks of just writing that. And it was kind of the culmination of like this past summer in the quarantine type thing, where I had a bunch of ideas that were really big and in response to everything, right? Yeah. I don't know if I need to say more than that, but it was like, it was big and timely and contemporary culturally stuff, addressing all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And for a number of reasons, it didn't really work out. So I was so I have a good amount of months this past summer where I was just working, trying and failing. So I didn't put anything out really. I see. And whenever I find myself in a position like that, I'll usually just write raps. In Ultra, the songs get kind of fancy in terms of structure and production, but when I started in middle school and was doing stuff in high school, I wasn't really making beats like that. I was just writing, right? I was just taking beats and writing to old school hip hop beats, and that was it, right? So my bread and butter is just get a beat that is that tempo, that boom bappy 90 to 100 BPM type of tempo, and just going. Like that's the tempo I speak at. That's the tempo I think at, right? So I can just like write to that like nothing. I can literally write forever like nothing. And again, like I said earlier, this is the song where I was like, I did think of it as being the culmination of, it took me 10 years to write that song, right?
Yeah.
And to like see the progression, like now it's like, I wrote that and I was like, okay, I write like this now, right? Like if you look at the lyrics, they're layered, they're nested in terms of the references. And another thing related to the music and the identity thing is that I'm getting closer and closer to reach the way I talk, the way I write. It's there now-ish.
I see.
Because like, I mean rhythmically, I mean vocabularically too. Like to where there's stuff that I worded out in that song where I was just like, okay, yeah. Like to the point where now if I'm talking about certain subjects, I'll kind of be like, I'll refer to the song. I never did that before, but like this is like, oh, no. This actually is what I mean, right?
As Barry Weiss resigns from the Times, Squared gets your millennium problem solved and your prize money declined. Put 10 fingers down if you've self-actualized. Now take your 2 open poems and give a chief executive officer's face a double high five. Rhythm and flow is not a Netflix show. They are biological, psychological, optimal zones felt exclusively in bones. Similarly, brain and brawn are not diametrically opposed. It's just no one's had the chops to transmog an identity that's both. Would have stopped with the jokes if that were all, folks. Far from it. I haven't even brought up the bombs I planted at the Davos summit. I stuck a TikTok dance under a box propped up with a stick, snagged a screenager and taught her AP lit scholarly shit. No $sign S's in this spelling a scholarship. Scholasticism's not just book fairs for kindergarten kids.
I wanted to go all the way. And so like related to Rebel Wisdom and the intellectual things and whatnot. So I found Rebel Wisdom and the intellectual dark web kind of conversation in 2019, so like a year ago. So I'm relatively new to all this, right? I was working on Ultra, just music, whatever, and then I stumbled onto this thing. During that period where it was kind of introspective, I found these, Jordan Peterson, like Rebel Wisdom and like those kinds of things. And I found out that as a way of thinking and speaking, and I kind of incorporated that into Ultra, right? Because as I grow, as stuff becomes relevant to me, it becomes a part of Ultra. That especially because I was always intellectually leaning, but never properly like using the words like that or whatever. But slowly, as songs have gone on in the past year or so, I name drop certain things, certain ideas, certain people, kind of superficially, where I'm just kind of name dropping them because names, it was like, it's not that deep. But Inside Baseball was like, okay, I talk about anti-fragility, I mentioned Daniel Schmachtenberger, I talk about standardized testing, and like, which was a result of getting into Zach Stein's work. I don't know if you're familiar with Zach Stein.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that seeped in because I was watching that stuff, and just like when I was sitting and letting my mind go, that was obviously in there. So I worded it out the way I did. And actual articulations on culture, because before the lyrics were very pop culture reference centric, very much jokes. But now it's like in Inside Baseball, there are a good amount of stuffs. And recently, just in general, but definitely in Inside Baseball, it's just, there are a lot of lines where it's just, this is me making a point about something. I'm not trying to be funny. It's just like, I'm really happy with how I worded this point out. And this is just me communicating something. And so I mentioned this in the post on the Rebel Wisdom community. I was aware of it, and I was aware of the Rebel Wisdom, like that, those circles and whatnot. And I was always iffy about whether or not I should go in, because especially if I want to present this project, because if I did it a year ago, I don't know how clear it would have been given all the potty humor and the wacky production that is like, oh yeah, so game B. I don't know if it would have made sense. But now, like after Inside Baseball, I was like, okay, now that pushed me into it of being, because I was thinking about it for a long time, but that was a song where I was like, okay, I think if I show people this, people might actually get what I'm talking about. And I thought about that for a good amount of time. Like, how can I incorporate these ideas in a way that actually makes it seem like I care about them? And again, not superficial, just kind of mentioning them. It's like, because again, so Ultra as an innovation lens, I don't know. for a year, I was kind of just taking in these ideas, right? Learning them all, learning the jargon and whatnot. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I know enough about this. I'm going to run with it and be the creative, the artist that I am, right? Because I don't want to be just somebody who's taking in all this information and just spewing it back to you. We could have a conversation just about how awesome Game B is, and that would be great. But I really, really, again, if I'm stepping in a place, I want to do something different. And so I shut up for a good amount of time, just taking in these ideas. And now it's like, oh, okay, now I know how to push this conversation forward. And it was Inside Baseball. So that was like a real, I don't know if there's ever been a song that I've made that was before this song and after this song, but that's like probably the song where it's just, this is the, that's
like,
a landmark.
It's like BC and AD. It's like
a little bit,
that.
Honestly.
Yeah, it's crazy.
B-I-B.
Exactly, that's it. Okay, what I'm doing with Noetic Nomads, look, I mean, like when you say, like, when you came in with this, I think the reason it's just like, you know how we were just talking about this. We just, something happens. We don't know why. It was just like, I'm vibing with you. And then later you're like, oh, now that makes sense. Cause just like you came in with like the potty humor, like, you know, like with the hip hop, and you're trying to like push this thing, you know, it's like kind of in the Game B frame, but it's not the old school Game B. It's not like, you know, I don't want to be offensive, but you know, like kind of like the boring, stodgy, old school types. And I'm like, and when I, with this Noetic Nomads thing, and like, you look a lot of these people, like these people have great ideas, right? But like, you know, they're just like, blah, 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 blah. They have terrible production value, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, dude, it's like, if we want to create change, like one of the things, like I, on Twitter, right? I was like, if you have something important to say, you have two obligations. Number one, broadcast the out of that. Number two, do not be effing boring, because it's just like, we need to get this stuff out there. And that's it. I also understand that it's just like, okay, some people, that's their role they play. Some people, like, I'm never going to be a Daniel Schmachtenberger. I'm not going to be a Zach Stein, right? They're gonna, Daniel Schmachtenberger, he's one of those thinkers that really transcends. Like, he actually starts to get into, because his stuff is just so like insightful. It just cuts through. But I mean, like, you know, my point is, like, there are all these thinkers who are like, okay, you're really good at thinking. You're good at formulating these ideas. And then I see, like, okay, then I look at myself. I'm like, wait a minute. Okay, I'm like in that Venn diagram, right? Where just like, okay, yes, I could get into that thing, right? I could understand that, but I could be like, okay, now I could put my own spin on it, bring it to a whole new audience. So this is the Venn diagram thing that I see happening with all of us. You know?
Yes, a million times yes. And this is something that I was thinking about before I stepped in here, right? Or like at the very beginning, like when I say I was started, like, I knew enough to run with it. That's what I mean. And there's a lot to say about what I mean when I say I know enough to run with something. Like, that's a very specific thing that is kind of, I don't have like specific by name, like these are the ultra principles or whatever, but like these things that keep coming back, and that's one thing. Yeah. So part of that knowing enough to run with it was noticing the kinds of people who are thinkers in this space. And it's the exact thing that you're talking about. And so what came to mind was that, so the Weinstein brothers I followed for a good amount of time. Like, there are certain thinkers that I pay attention to a little bit more, and there are two of them, and both of them have spoken on separate occasions about the role of artists in this community. And I swear, every time I hear them talk about it, it's like they're looking at like me, right? I just feel like so pressured. I'm just like, it's like, this is what I mean. Like, that Venn diagram thing, exactly. And I was talking about this with Tyson, actually. This came up. Yeah. It's funny that we were on the same like wavelength in terms of these, like, exactly the kinds of people who are different. I said this to Tyson as well, like people who are different, because it would be one thing if an older white man type of thinker went on camera and was all like, hello, fellow kids, right? Like, just to be like, you know, that's what you need, showmanship, presentation. Hey, it's like they got a TikTok. Oh my God, are you kidding me? Oh my God. Right?
Yeah.
So someone who is of that space, but they're trying to do this thing and step into this space. And this is another thing. So there's a lot here, but so people who are different. I have a feeling that you, me, and Tyson are kind of, are different, meaning like, the way that our lives have worked out, we're just brought up different. We're not cut from this intellectual type of cloth, really. And because we carry ourselves the way that we do, but still understand these ideas with Like, we're not just going to butcher these ideas, right? Like, I hope not. I hope I'm not. Like, I have the highest risk of doing it, if anybody, but to not just take these ideas and run with them, like I was saying, but to like understand them enough. Like I say, know enough, but like not like just barely enough, but like knowing enough. Like, it took me a year to really get these ideas, and now I'm like, okay, now let me go. But yeah, that's one thing. I'm just like, if these ideas are meant to spread, the role of artists is to spread them, not to understand them inside out, right? And this is another thing too when it comes to music, right? So let me say this. So this is another thing that's arisen thanks to Ultra, the specific way of thinking, and this is a little bit more formalized. Prioritization of identities. I have a feeling somebody must have already thought of this, but basically, I consider myself an artist first, and a bunch of other things like whatever second. Intellectual probably doesn't even make the top 5. Like somebody in these types of things, it's just like I create first and foremost, and so that means when I make creative decisions, especially in Ultra, the buck stop is this going to make good? Is this going to make a good song? Is this going to make a good art? And I feel artists who are trying to do art are probably some of the most successful in terms of quality of their art versus an intellectual type trying to do art, right? I'm just going to call this out. Why not? Like, there's another thing to the attitude of being like, being young, being rambunctious, being rebellious, so to speak. And being like, not in like a adversarial game theoretic way, but to look at the way that people are and be like, I don't think that works. Like, that's one thing, but it's also to be like, y'all don't get it. Y'all are missing something big here, and I'm going to do this thing because y'all are missing it. Like this attitude with it, right?
Exactly.
So,
Ultra! 23 years with a footy for the doc, still ain't got no clue how to finish it. I take it you between a real life nerd making real life hip hop. What are you, deaf? Don't be a dingus. First one, and I'll be the last one left. Death. Good morning, children. How does it feel to be young in America? Catch with the risk is everyone doubts your predictions till the nice guy finishes. This dangerous deal gon' pay off in spades. My fate has been sealed. Matter money came a long way from a way you could pay for a meal. Too real. It's the future, where the votes get tracked by a hacked computer and not so high of an active shooter. The preschool's gonna run practice maneuvers. Disney's carousel of progress is close today due to technical difficulties. Now when America sings, I just hear Deborah screams. Seize the day or ease the pain, both futile. Either way, nihilist please, subtle as the handlebars already just face. Anti-natal, cosmic horror, just
that is something that gets lost when intellectual types step into this hip hop space. Because imagine if I were trying to do this. Imagine if I were an intellectual first and I had this big Ultra project and I was just like, oh yes, it's game B. And I'm trying to, thanks to my calculations, I've added up that this is how you transcend hip hop culture. And it's like, I just make rap music. And because of that, I think it'll resonate a little bit more. So that attitude is really important of not just like being a punk thing. That's something that I do have a conscious sense of when it comes to Ultra and my approach to Ultra. It's like, I want to be smart. I want to be funny. I want to be theatrical, but I also want to be a punk about it. I want to be a little bit of a rude about it. Cause I don't want to cause that's hip hop. You know what I mean? That's like being authentic and being outspoken. Like not just being authentic, but being outspoken about your authenticity. Not just having pride in yourself, but having so much pride that you step on over other people and say, I'm a better, it's not just, I'm a great rapper. It's I'm a better rapper than you.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is game A. And because of that, like people might get turned off by it. But because I'm doing it in the context of this crazy project, like authenticity, right? So I really hope Ultra comes off as an authentic project, but not in an immediate way. So let me say this. I thought about this recently. So I'm jumping all over the place. Feel free to.
No, I love it. Don't go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy nowadays. Imagine a stand-up comedian in your head. You're probably like just somebody dressed like you, probably, right? Just like an average person. Like I thought about recently, it's like they look like they just walked out the audience and they were just like, give them the mic, right? Which is great because it's relatable.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I really love people like Andrew Dice Clay came to mind just now. Pee Wee Herman, obviously, where it's like, if they step on stage, it's just like, that is obviously not that person. And whenever I do this Mr. Master thing, I've rarely done it. I haven't done it too often on stage, especially recently when everything's kind of formulated. Like it's actually together now. But when I eventually do that, I really want to create that air of on stage, it's completely different because that's where things get complicated. It's like, this is why comedians get in trouble. It's like, oh, what do you mean? I wasn't serious. It's like you were kind of dressed the way you are right now. You weren't, and if that separation is created, that suspension of disbelief is made very, very obvious. Like, this is not real, right? It's like, then I can do whatever I want, right? It would be stupid if I were to sit here and be like, oh, I genuinely am the character of Mr. Master, and I'm just going to talk about how smart I am. Like, it would be stupid. It's like, when I'm sitting here as a person, I'm just like, okay, I'm humble. I'm listening. I have these ideas. I don't know if they're good or not, but it's like, and then I step on record. It's like, I'm the greatest rapper you have ever heard. And I'm allowed to say that because I'm playing a character.
Yeah.
And that's something that I feel like is missing just in general. What I don't see anybody doing is getting Game B ideas across using Game A. Because if it's ubiquitous right now, it's like, we can't just switch. Like, if you want to get people on board, it can't just be like, hey, abandon everything you've ever known about everything ever. It's like, let me just sneak this in. And I've always thought about this with Ultra, like using the metaphor for a good amount of time now of Trojan horsing learning through this music. Like, to be like, hey, jokes, hey, funny beats, hey, funny voices. And then, by the way, Game B, like, I keep saying Game B, but I'm not, again, like, this is another thing too. Yeah. Like, when it comes to Game B stuff, because I posted in the thing and people were like, oh, hey, Game B rap, let's go. And I'm just like, I wasn't trying to do that, but I think that's kind of the point, right? Like, it would be like, Game B is an idea, and calling it Game B, just the name of it, would kind of ruin it, because what I understand as a really problematic factor nowadays is subscription to movements and outsourcing of independent thought, let's say. And it's not like anybody in these circles is immune. Anybody who is a diehard for Game B is kind of, I don't know, kind of Game A it a little bit, where it's like, it's just being aware, like, hey, just so you know, there's this concept called Game B, and it means take everything you've ever done and do it different. That's really vague, but I was doing all that anyway, and I didn't call it Game B, I called it Ultra. And it's coming from an authentic place. Again, like, Game B, it would be interesting, like, I've been valuing emergence more and more recently, and Ultra is the product of emergence. I was just kind of running around doing whatever, and this kind of happened. I feel like the way to make progress it's really just don't try to make it Game B, like, directly aiming for it. It's like, that's kind of the problem, is it not? To just go and, like, I feel like any meaningful forward step in this thing would be emergent. That's the thing, of let's just try to do things different, and then maybe something will kind of pop up. And to accelerate that potential for forward movement would mean getting new people in here who have different eyes, who aren't intellectual types. Like, I don't want to say like me, but like kind of, where it's just like, I was doing my own thing, and I have my own thing figured out here, because there are a good amount of people who are probably, like me or you, it's just like, they have been thinking about these ideas, and they actually have made a good amount of progress. They just don't know about this community.
Exactly.
And they don't like super long form content. I'm sure we both do, but this is where, like, the paying attention to media and whatnot comes in. It's like, if people don't want to sit for 3 hours and watch 3 guys talk on a sofa, that's completely understandable. But if I can take what they're talking about and put it in maybe an 18-minute song is kind of long, but a 3 or 4 minute song, if that, like, even less, like 2-minute song, barely, right? Again, like, I'm not trying to shove like shoehorn like all these ideas in here. It's like, it's a good song, it's jokey, it's funny, it's silly first, and then by the way, I'm just gonna like whisper Game B like this, just so you know that's in there too. And just like
I mean, like, I'm completely with you, and I think I know exactly what video you're talking about with 3 guys on couches.
Yes, I was just watching it recently.
It's like the 3 guys on couches video. So I'm completely with that, because it's just like, again, like, these are earworms. Like, you could say blah blah blah, you can have all this text, you get a good hook, you know what I mean, a good beat, it just drilled in the head all day. So I'm completely with that. And the thing about you were to say something?
I was just gonna say, like, I don't think I said, but let me just call it out, why not? I try to post my music in the Portal Discord, and I think the Rebel Wisdom Discord too. I don't use Discord like that, I don't know, but like, this is the exact thing that people are saying in those spaces, like, earworms, catchy hooks, that's how you get it in there. And then, like, all these people are musicians second or third or fourth, and then they're
I see.
intellectual types first, right? They're
Yeah,
engineers.
yeah.
They're, you know, cool, great, do your thing. But it's
Mhm.
like hearing the music people have tried to make in this space, it's all very Woody Guthrie. It's all very
Mm.
trance, dark, housey music. I'm just
Yeah.
like, this is how this is where, you know, what kind of music this appeals to? People who are already in these circles, right?
Exactly.
I'm like,
yeah.
get like, I just want to be somebody who's like talking about, I don't see anybody doing this, like talking about these ideas, this in this context where it's like, I'm young, I know how kids listen to music nowadays. I'm young,
Yeah.
right? Like when I was in college in Northridge, and I was all over the valley, the Hollywood type stuff, doing college stuff. It's like, I know what this music does to people. I know, I've seen it firsthand.
Mhm.
And that's the place where I'm coming from, not some like, and the lyrics, like none of the lyrics are really about it like that, right? It's like,
Yeah,
I just
exactly.
mentioned it. That's the thing. So it's like, that's what I feel is missing. Like, it's really bothered me, honestly, just to speak to things that have bothered me, like straight up bothered me. It's like all these people in the circles who kind of get it, but it's like, if they talk about hip hop, all they talk about is not the 90s or
Yeah.
earlier. And it's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. It's like, let's get some new blood in here. Let's get some youth in here who understands it and communicate it in the way that youth understand, right? Because again, that thing too, it's like, it sounds like, oh, we just need a catchy hook, and you're trying to like calculations, algorithms.
Exactly.
In your
The
head.
algorithm is like, woo, that's, you know. Yeah.
Let's like math, music theory, the hook, and how do people understand me? It's
Exactly.
like go to a party, like go to a house party at
yeah.
a university. It's like, that's, and see what flies and what doesn't, because there are songs that are duds and there are songs that go, and like I'm not paying attention in an analytical, let me take notes about this kind of way. And just like, I was part of it, I was in it too, right? So yeah, that's just frustrated me. It's like, oh, catchiness, it's like, it's an intuitive thing, it's an artistic thing you wouldn't understand.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, like that's why I'm so glad that you're in this space. Because even you, like you're talking about the 90s, like again, I was into the 90s. Like, look, I'm a lot older than I look. I'm freaking 36 years old, right? So I mean, I'm a lot older than I look. So that's why when I said 90s, that's the thing, you know, because that's where I grew up, like Mob Deep, and like I was like a really gangster ass hip hop. I was like super deep into that, you know, the New York Queens and all that stuff. And I'm like, I don't know like what's going on right now. When you talked about nerdcore, I was like, I think I've heard of that, and I'm like, nerdcore, and then I had to look up nerdcore, and you talk about MC Front a lot and all that, and I was like, oh, so this is what's going on right now. It's like, that's why I'm like, we got to get people like you on. Yeah.
I was like, nerdcore isn't like on like that. It's actually very, very, very
okay, yeah. But yeah, it's like, I mean, like the fact that even it exists, because it's just like, oh, nerdcore. Yeah. So I mean, one thing I wanted to talk about again, like we're talking about like game A, like how do we? I mean, the whole concept of game A versus game B. I mean, we could break down that's problematic in the first place, but it's just like what I'm doing with this, because like a lot of these like game B and game B adjacent types, they're trying, you know, like again, like I'm talking mess, right? That's very game A-ish.
Yeah.
But again, like being authentic, right? It's just like you got these people sitting around in circles, being like, oh, la la la, let's have, you know, let's do our little practice, how, you know, circle and all this stuff, and I'm just like, that's great. It's like, okay, now let's move beyond that and spread this. Like, oh no, we just want to stay in the circle and do this. And one of the things is okay, I know like I could be cocky. Part of it is understandably it is shadow. Like, you know, cockiness, it comes from some sort of deep insecurity. Parts of cockiness, but there's another cockiness. It's just like, you know, that bravado, like you talk about battle rap, just so I don't crush you, dude. And it's not, and the thing is like, it could, you know, manifest a shadow aspect, but then it's all gonna be like, hey man, I'm gonna channel this energy, man, and be like, hey, I want to talk about how awesome you are. I want to bring Gabe on. I want to bring Mr. Master on. I'll talk about how awesome he is. I want to do all this stuff, and then all these people in the background are like, oh my god, that's ego, like shadow projection. I'm like. So, I mean, like, I don't know if, like, how do I balance this? Do I just be authentic? And do I just manage, okay, my shadow is manifesting now versus, okay, I'm actually doing this for something greater that could actually benefit Game B?
So ego's role in all this. So like I said, I think for me, what has helped me is to really make clear that distinction of, because I don't think about that. Like I've just, again, I don't know if this is actually a thing, but this is the framework I use. And it's just, if I'm ever speaking way too highly of myself or highly of myself at all, it's kind of I don't use this, but it might make sense maybe to say it's Mr. Master talking. It's like, it's not me. It's like this character. Because that's what Mr. Master is kind of meant to represent, I guess. I don't think of it like as a separate person or whatever, but if we want to, it is the kind of, I see Mr. Master as a cartoon version of me. And that means me, but all the very specific aspects, the very unique character traits that make me turned up to 11. And that's ego, that's pride in myself and my skills. And even when it comes to this too, like conversations like this where it's kind of turning into talking mess and hating, it is a kind of implied, I know better than this, and there is a little bit of stank on it, there's a little bit of attitude to it. But I feel like what comes to mind is sportsmanship too. It's funny, like recently, relating to, so I was a big nerd for a long time, and only recently have I gotten to the NBA. And now if you listen to the songs recently, it's like I just talk about basketball all the time. But I'm using that now to frame some of my thinking in sportsmanship. Like when you're on the court, when you're on the field, it is just no holds barred. I'm trying to win. I will just demolish you if you get in my way. And then if you fall down a little too hard, I'll help you back up because out. It's a sport, right? As soon as the time runs out, as soon as the clock stops, it's like, all right, good game. We're all in this together. But as soon as as we're playing the game, it's like, all right, it's just all the way in. And that means in the context of conversation, like I don't do this, but what also comes to mind is friends roasting each other. I don't like this at all because I'm very sensitive, right? But it's like, I've been around friends who do this though. They leave me out gratefully. But like, why do they do that? Because they hate each other and they just want to tell them to their faces. No, they love each other.
Exactly.
And they want to build each other up. And my friends have said some messed up stuff to each other, but it's like coming from that place of like, at the end of it, it's like, it's DAP, it's love. It's like, yeah, so there's a way to understand it as being binary, which is simplification. And you want to oversimplify some of those things. Yeah. But there is a time and place to just kind of, again, know enough about this. I know that there's a shadow type, maybe this pride is because of something that happened in my childhood. It's like, you know what, I've had enough of that conversation. I'm just gonna shut that and I'm just gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna not think about that too deep, like on purpose, right? Not because I'm being ignorant or I'm running away. Those are two like ways to interpret that, but it's also just thinking about this too much might actually cause more problems for me, right? Where it's just, look, you would know. I kind of trust that you would know if you're like, okay, wait, I'm actually like, that's practicing discernment, that's self-awareness and all that. Yeah. But being like, if you feel like you're going a little too much, then dial it back. Yeah. But and especially if you find yourself in a social situation and it's clear that somebody else isn't getting it, then it's like, okay, like stop, game's over, like stop everything, stop the clock. All right, no, let me actually be genuine for a second. That gets very dicey though. As soon as you bring like other people and other minds and other interpretations in there, it gets pretty complicated. But that's for me, it's like I have this outlet. That's the music for me. It's like, and there's another thing too, like it's not like we are unique in this egoic sense of I'm smarter than people, right? Like this is something that has to be everywhere. In these intellectual, like you feel like you figured it out. And you look at everybody else on the bus and you're like, what are these stupid people? They don't even know about Game B. Really? And like, what is that? It's the exact same people as like the woke left looking around everybody like, what is the matter with you? Trump supporters, what is the matter with all you people? Intellectual Game B types, like, what is the matter with both of you? All of you. Even so, it's like, oh my God. It's ego and it's worse. This is another thing that bothers me because it's worse because, and I say this in inside baseball, let's say, bias. And I say this elsewhere too, but like this insight of being aware of biases doesn't make them go away. Right? Exactly. It's like when you learn about confirmation bias, it's like, oh, what a stupid thing to do. None of that for me anymore.
Daniel Kahneman says Daniel Kahneman, the big economics guy, he's like, to this day, I'm still biased as hell. Exactly.
That is the exact thing that informed like that. I was just like, I literally saw that. And I was just like, okay, that changes everything. It's just like, you've studied your whole life doing this. It's like, none of it has helped. It's like, all right, yep, that goes out the window. Yeah. Like, and that's the problem though. It's like, being aware of bias does help, but it's not like gonna cure you, right? Like, and acting like you're aware of these game theoretic dynamics, this whatever it is, makes you immune to them. It's like it makes you better than them. It's like, no. So that's what I'm saying of utilizing game A in the game B conversation. It's like, you can't just be like, oh, I'm better. Now it's just go all in on game B. It's like, you are 99% game A anyway. So like, let's not run from that. you do think you're smarter than everybody else. That isn't healthy, but it's also fine, right? It's like there's a
Exactly.
time and place, and I found my time and my place. I made it. It's ultra. Set an agreement with the people that, because if I have a conversation with you and we both get that if I say something super egotistical, it's not because I've had some childhood trauma or I'm actually just an asshole. It's just like you agree, like, okay, no, yeah, you're just benefit of the doubt. Like that's something that you're gonna say. I don't know. It's like that takes time to feel out, it's person to person. But like it's just that's the thing for me with ego. And to put it out there, you know what I mean? Like how else are you gonna talk about it? It's like hip hop is inherently egocentric. I'm the best rapper. Look at all of my stuff. Look at all I've done. Look at who I am. It's like, and a lot of people, I'm sure, have arguments for why that is not morally great, like, and why that makes the music unlistenable. And it makes them want to run away into their stuff like the 90s when it was good music and how it's been downhill since then. When you bring up nerdcore, I actually have the same hang up with the nerdcore community. And it's why I haven't really been a part of it. Again, like I started making music because I found MC Frontalot's music. And I had my little phase in 08, 09, 2010-ish maybe. And then after that, it was like I wasn't listening to nerdcore like that. I don't listen to nerdcore like that. And the new nerdcore thing is kind of just in name, just to show where I'm from and just to like be clear that this is just to put a name on it. You know, it's just easy to have a name on it. And if
so it's a neologism. It's especially you came up with new nerdcore.
No, it is not.
Oh, it's not.
No, it is not.
Oh, okay. I just want to make sure. Oh,
people have thought it was, and I'm just like, no, please.
Okay,
MC Frontalot coined it. MC
okay.
Frontalot coined it, and this is an interesting thing to say too. MC Frontalot coined it to describe his music. He wasn't trying, let me start a movement, right? It's just,
I see.
This is nerdy stuff. I'm like hip hop. And so I'm going to call my stuff nerdcore. His stuff kind of took off. There were other people who were thinking similarly, but in different places. And then throughout 08, 09-ish, they crossed paths and it became this little movement that had its little time in the sun for like 09, like a year basically. And then it fell off the face of the earth. And why? A very prominent figure in the scene, MC Lars, posted a blog post about this exact thing of the nerdcore scene kind of falling off. And what I recall from it is that he's saying the same thing of people who are entering the space and they're nerds first and rappers second. So what do you get with all that? You get a lot of nerds gathered around a campfire singing songs they wrote together and having a lot of fun. Cool, but they're all the way over there and nobody knows how much they suck. like just to like be blunt about it. It's like there's over there and that's fine, you know, have your fun. But it's like if a nerdcore rapper nowadays, even like all through this time, because it's been like 10 years and it's been a niche scene and it's still been going, there are new artists coming up, but still put them up on stage in a battle rap type situation and it's just no contest, right? Whereas me, I'm just like, I'm trying to do this, right? For ego, for me, it helps to create that distinction between on stage and off stage. I am this exaggerated character. Like, this is not who I am, really. It's just I'm leaning into this sinful, perhaps, tendency and being aware that it's bad. So me at the bottom, off stage, like, yeah, I know this is bad. Of course I do. But I go on stage and it's like, look at me, I'm this crazy thing. But as soon as I get off, that's the thing. And I really do want to note again, like, this has to be like, you're not the only person with ego problems.
No way.
And it's fine. Like, I think it's fine. I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's get rid of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, it's its own thing to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've realized recently, 'cause again, like I was in like Sensemaking 101 and we're in all these, run in all these different circles. They're all like, okay, ego is bad. And then you got like Ryan Holiday talking about the ego is the enemy. To me, it's just like the realization that I've come to recently is that ego is the means, but not the end. That's what it's about.
Exactly.
Yeah. So like you're using ego to further something, and like you're talking about how like Mr. Master is like a character. Like, to me, it's like you're kind of like sublimating. You're kind of channeling all that, maybe id or something, or some aspect that you want to just channel that, and just like with like Beyonce with like Sasha Fierce, or like you talk about basketball. Yeah, the Black Mamba with Kobe. Kobe was like, okay, I'm Kobe, but then, maybe at home I'm the father Kobe, but then on the court, I'm the Black Mamba, and I'm just going to destroy you. So that's exactly what it is. When I'm speaking with you right now, like I've watched like some of like the talks you've had on your channel with other people, and I'm like, dude, this dude is like so well spoken. He's into all these topics. And then I listen to Mr. Master, and I'm like, damn, boy, he's throwing, he spent fire on all these fools. I'm like, shit, you know, and then just like, wow. And just like, you really created this character, and it's amazing. And then like, I have all these different characters. Like, if you interacted me in all these different spaces, you'd be like, kind of weird. Like, I was once an aspiring vegan pastry chef, and I almost opened up my own donut shop last year. Like, I'm into all these different things, which kind of makes sense. I'm weird like that. Why I'm doing this. And then like, I was working at a bakery, like the #1, like, you know, donut shop in the state, New Jersey. And then the people were like, dude, do you have a learning disability? Because like, I'll come off like a complete bonehead in there. And like, if someone just walked up to me, like, and they just had like an informal conversation, they might be like, oh, this guy's a complete like bozo. This guy's like, I don't know, some weird jock. This guy's an a-hole or something. But then like, I could be like, I could like type the most beautiful, like poetic, emotional stuff, and then I could like be super intellectual. And it's interesting. It's like we're chatting all these different aspects, and like I don't know. It's just like what brings me to it's like this concept of like one stable, you know, character that is like the totality of who we are. It's just faulty. Like, you know, just like, oh, and I heard you actually speak about this. In your with your friend, you had this you were talking with your friend about this, Alex, I believe. And
Yes.
you talk about how like, you know, being weird, being smart, and being cool, they're not mutually exclusive, right? Like, you could be all of this or just none of this at once. You could be one of this, two of these, three, everything. You could be everything at once, and it's not mutually exclusive. And like, that's what I'm trying to do with this. And it's one of the things, like you, I'm afraid. I have some fear, because like, I don't know if you watched my first 2 episodes, but you watched both of them, dude. Yeah. First of all, much props for appearing on this show after watching both of those, because I'm very afraid of scaring people off, because I'm like, this is me, this is authentic. You know, I'm like, I have this intellectual side that I really want to bring this thing, and there's also this crazy braggadocious kind of like id type that I feel like, but to me it's like, that's me, and by being me, I could bring in all these other folks.
What comes to mind is being misunderstood, perhaps. Because I worry this. Well, I don't want to worry about it. Having the same thing of turning people off, I guess.
Yeah.
I worry about it a lot less, but it's something I consider, of course, because it's not like Ultra is for everybody.
It's not.
And wouldn't it be nice for this to just spread and do whatever numbers, followers, blah, 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 to have it resonate with all these people? But it's like, you know, this is what you sign up for when it comes to niche stuff. It's like, this might lead to the whole ego thing, at least in this case, where you're super wide in your range of interests and synthesize those interests in a way that not a lot of people understand, because in order to understand them, they would have to share those interests, right? All of them, right? It's like, this is fun for Ultra, where if I show somebody who's a hip hop fan, Ultra, they're going to hear it for the music. They're going to hear it for the hip hop.
Yeah.
If I show a Broadway person, Ultra, they'll hear the Broadway stuff, right?
Broadway.
And somebody who's just into comedy, they might just catch the comedy things of it. Somebody like you in these spaces, it's like catching the intellectual ideas and the potential for all the identity stuff like that, right? So Blind Man and the Elephant type something.
Exactly.
I'm the elephant, just like, why aren't you seeing everything? But it's like, that's the thing, right? There's a way to scale that all the way down to being your own self, and understanding that people will understand your tail as a broom and your trunk as a snake, or whatever metaphor we're going, like, of like, when you're in these different contexts, you have these understandings of you as people see you. And again, like you're saying, that's the point of like, none of these cancel each other out. There's a way to understand these as all being part of the same thing. It's all part of the same story. It's all part of the same self. And splitting things a bunch of different ways, I think, can help if it is informed by that bedrock of, these are separate divisions of something that is ultimately whole. It's not like its own thing, its own thing, its own thing. And what comes to mind as well is how that, multiple identities theory, it's like a thing, right, where if you have your work self, and you have your at-home self, and you're around your friends and your class self, and how all of that has collapsed into home, and like there's like a whole mess that's going to be a result of whenever everybody's let back into the world or whatever. But understanding that all these things, especially if you have a super wide range of interests, and I tell anybody, or I actually don't tell them, but like, this is like the thing that I feel has only led me to be as much myself as I am, which is expanding my range of interests all over the place, right? So if you listen to Ultra, I'm talking about movies and video games and stuff from history and stuff from business and sports now and ideas like this. And it's like, what I did in exposing myself to all these different things is take what resonated with me and say, all right, I'm going to run with this. I'm going to leave everything else, and then I'm going to go somewhere else. So that's what Ultra is, this culmination of all these like things, all these little pieces that I liked that spoke to me for some reason. And here it is, all the stuff that I like. And now I look back and I'm like, wait a second, what does all this mean? And because of that, basically I learned to not care about that. And not just that, of like not being understood, right?
Yeah.
That sounds so like simple, but I mean that in a really like concrete way. Like that's like a real concrete feeling of not just like, I don't care, all these people are lately, informed by the game B types of thinking, I'm seeing having a wide reach and broadcast itself obviously, but getting a bigger following as not just unfavorable, but harmful to what I ultimately want to do.
Yeah.
So now it's not just like, oh my God, like, yeah, all those people are stupid. It's just like, if I get big, like that is kind of game over in terms of me being able to have conversations like this with smaller people without any of the pressure of, oh my God, everybody's going to see this. Like what I did over the summer, actually, I went on my Instagram and was like, hey, does anybody want to talk? Just like this, because I was in the mood for it, thanks to all these rebel wisdomy, like these intellectual circles. And it made me want to have these long conversations where I practice listening, where I practice wording my ideas out. And so here I am with talking to like teenagers who've listened to my stuff just out for hours and being like, would I have been able to do that if I blew up earlier on like I wanted to before? It's like, no, not at all. And like, I've been lucky enough to brush shoulders with some artists who are out here, right? They have the followings, they have the numbers, and I can only imagine what it's like to be them and like how that pressure must weigh on them and all that, and how they just can't like do stuff like that, right? Like if something big were to rise to the top in terms of all these things, like that really resonates with people at a wide level, that would need to be predicated by a bunch of conversations like this, by people who are trying hard to make sense and sometimes not, most often not for me, like standing on the shoulders of like all these people who just were in the trenches, just going at it, and they weren't trying to get famous and like, look what I figured out. It's just like dedicating their entire lives to figuring it out, and getting big really muddies up that whole thing because now you're under a microscope. You got all these eyes watching you, you can't figure out things as openly. So there's a way to understand Ultra as me justifying why everything I've always been doing is something that I should keep doing. Staying small. Why should I keep saying small? Because of that. Because you can only really do a lot of these things in private. And that makes it so. And I don't know if you've heard, but like I mentioned these in some of the songs, like turning obscurity into a superpower, being like, this is something that I, you know, all these people brag about money and like whatever, it's like, I don't want to hate on that or anything, it's its own thing, but for me to brag about nobody getting me, right? Because there's something to that, like that speaks to the ego. Nobody gets me, nobody understands me. Fine, that's great. That, and if I let that go, and I put a song out called Doubt that like a couple days like last week, and it was just, that's what it's about, like my doubts of being like, does this make sense if I just do this and nobody ever knows about any of the work I'm doing? Does that matter? It's like, you know, in a lot of ways it does. And again, I don't want to act like I'm better than that. Wouldn't it be nice for me to just sit here and be like, yeah, I'm above that, like winning is losing in my, like I rap about that, being like basically like the way y'all win the success, it's like y'all are stupid, that's not my success, ha ha ha. But it's like I'll be up night and like late at night just thinking, being like, I think I am failing. I think you know what I mean? So it's like on good days, on most days, it is a kind of, all right, the thing that I'm doing is not set up to take off like that. So to trick myself into thinking, oh, why isn't anybody getting it? It's just like, yeah, there are a bunch of reasons why nobody would get it. This is something I don't see too much in artist culture nowadays, I guess. People who are striving for a cult follow. I mean, the point is, if I can't find these artists, they're doing a good job. Like people who are shooting for that small following. They're not trying to get their numbers up. They're not watching these marketing videos, these industry videos of how to get your stuff on a curated Spotify playlist, it's like, I just want to make music. And like stuff like name any cult classic, anything you want, like Rocky Horror, or like any video game like Monkey Island or something like that.
Monkey Island, like nerd,
I don't know,
reference.
Does that count? Like,
I love Monkey Island. Yeah, Curse of Monkey Island. That was
Monsters Ate My Neighbors, of like these memorable games, or Zombies Ate My Neighbors, excuse me, that weren't trying to be big. They're not like, I was gonna say E.T., like that is not what I mean at all.
No.
But like these big name games, it's like they did their thing. They were small. And then eventually, as time went on, people got around. And it's not even like everybody recognizes how important it is. It's just there's this little following who's like, I get it, right? And all I can hope for with my stuff is having faith that that'll end up happening eventually. And hopefully like connecting like this, like making these one-on-one connections of not like, I'm glad you didn't find me through an Instagram ad or something, right?
Yeah,
it's like, let's connect genuinely. Something that I trust is like, I'm going to keep doing stuff the way that I'm doing. As many people as there are in the world, somebody's going to resonate with this, right? A lot of people aren't, and some of them comment telling me why it's not, but some of them are like, I get this more than you do. And it's like, if that's the case, like, let's talk. And that's only ever going to be smaller people, and that's a good thing, right? Because and I was talking about this with Tyson too, trading signal for reach, right? Where it's like, sure, wide reach, but a lot of people are like, it's complications of misunderstandings and whatever. It's just like me and you, if we talk forever, or just me and somebody else one-on-one, just talking for a good amount of time, now we get each other. And if I'm talking about ultra, if like over time or whatever, like, and you get like a better feeling of it, it's like, now you really get where I'm coming from with this. And I'd rather have some people really get where I'm coming from than to have a lot of people kind of like only get where I'm coming from. Like what comes to mind is there's this Broadway musical called Title of Show, and the closer song is 9 People's Favorite Thing, and the hook, the chorus of it is, I'd rather be 9 people's favorite thing than 100 people's 9th favorite thing.
Yeah, I see.
It's just like there. So like it sucks like being like people aren't going to understand, but like people aren't going to understand anyway, right? It's like the more people you you run into in your life, it's like people are gonna not get you, people are gonna not like you, but then there are people who really, really get you, and those relationships are the ones you should foster. So yeah, it just changed for me, like the measure of success, like quality over quantity, right? And there's a lot to say about like how much art and music have become a business, and how much analytics and demographics have come into play in this. It's like, you know, I'm going to make music. I'm not going to try to get paid off it really even. I'm not going to try to turn it into a job. I'm just going to do this thing. I'm going to have my big goals. And if they happen, they happen. If they don't, they don't. And there's a way to like write the narrative such that if they don't, it's even better. So like, I don't know if that spoke to that, but like I live in obscurity and I'm more than happy staying in it. Let me just say like what comes to mind as well. Like I've referenced this artist, Henry Darger, before on record. And he's this, I want to say he was 80, and I forget what time period he lived in, like the past 100 years, something. He was a janitor in Chicago. He died. He was a loner. Nobody ever talked to him. He didn't have any friends. And then he died. And the people who owned the room he was renting out went to clear it out because he died. And what they found was stacks of artwork and thousands of pages of a novel. And just this massive collection of things. Never told a soul about it, right? And now it's like after he's dead, he's just showing it's gallery shows and all that, right? So posthumous, I'm not talking about posthumous success or anything here, just the fact that so this is the nice thing about constantly exposing yourself to new information and history and stuff like that. It's like, oh, I saw that and was like, oh, that's a kind of person you can be. Like instead of all the big name artists who got success this or that way, industry, blah, blah, blah. It's like, if you haven't heard a story like that, it is as not real as life on Mars or something, right? It's like, you can't imagine what that's like. So it's not even in your frame of reference. But that got into my frame of reference and was like, oh, this is a kind of success you can have. Because all I had was the numbers, industry, something. So like, for me, it's just, so if that's the goal, then anybody else finding out about it is a bad thing, right? Like, so it takes a lot of looking through history. I wasn't looking for that. I was just watching documentaries because documentaries are great and I love documentaries. But exposing myself to all this information and being like, oh, okay, there's a way to understand my life as being fine if I never take off like that, like that.
Mm.
So numbers are secondary. I'm just doing this music thing.
Yeah. I mean, I respect the hell out of that. And to me, it's just like, this is dance. This is dance with, okay, it's like, the game A and game B dance. Cause like listening to your talk with Alex, you talk about like how you wanted to be different, not good or famous. You want to be different, right?
Yes,
And I completely resonate with that. Cause to me, like growing up my whole life, like I would be like, okay, oh, you're doing that, I'm gonna do this. You're gonna do that, I'm gonna do. And many times I'd be just sabotaging myself, but just like, you know what? I just want to be different. But in the end, I could also be like, okay, that's actually ego. That could actually be ego saying like, oh, I'm not you. This is me, So, and here's the thing: it's just like, could that be like a game A? Is that a game A kind of like mindset? Is that like, could it be like because like want to be different and not be good or famous? What if we could be good and famous and different? And like I'm trying to figure this out, because like when you say like I went through like your social media, you talk about like how like you don't, the numbers, that's not really what matters to you, and like I believe you, I respect that. And it's also, for me, it's just like there's ego and then there's something greater, right? There's like, I personally want to feel like I'm making an impact in the world, but I could actually say deeply from like a deep place, like it's more important that a big positive impact is felt, is shown in the world, is manifest in the world, rather than my having to be the cause of that. It's just like numbers for my ego and the greater whole. It does count. Like the more members, the more views we have, the more people come into the network, the more connections we make, the more projects are started from this. It's just the more different voices come in. Like it does matter, but it's also like, again, it goes back to, is the ego being the end, or is it being the means, right? It's just like, am I using this to further this, or am I just using it to be like, look at my numbers, everybody? And that pops up a lot. And actually, I was talking with, you watched the episode with Tia. I just recorded another like a tantric kind of practice session with her yesterday, and like talked about how I did all that personal work with Rebel Wisdom like throughout the summer up until right before the launch. It really understood more what I wanted, and I want to come from a more pure place, want to give back to the world, create something beautiful. And then I was like a Hindu cow. I was like, ooh, I was super excited, but and a little bit nervous leading up to the launch, right? And then it launches, and then I'm like, that shadow activation, like boom, boom. It's like, what? Why aren't they coming? It's like, are you ignoring me? Like, are you insulting me by doing that? In the tantric tradition, it's like the partner. What you do is you co-create like with your partner. You form like a connection with your partner, and like you kind of like you project your shadow onto them, and they project it onto you, and it's kind of it's like diluted, and then you're able to see it and then work with it, right? When you're with like another person, and just like. And she said, oh, Noetic Nomads, that's your lover. It's activating the hell out of your shadow. And like, that's how you're growing. Like, that's how you're working. The balance is so difficult.
And if that's the case, I think right? The way you're talking about stats. Yeah, I'm not just saying that it's all bad. Like for me, I actually have kind of just gotten rid of it completely. I mean, like I wouldn't rule it out. Like I have my connections or whatever. Like, and it's not like it's a finished product. I mean, it won't ever be ultra, but I do kind of hope that it gets to a point where if somebody stumbles across it, if I run into the right person in person, then something can happen. Yeah, cool. Like business, business. I'm a business major. I'm studying business at State, and that's kind of part of it. So
I see.
Maybe opening up to those possibilities. And it's just what gets so scary, genuinely scary for me, is how often it is the end for people. And if you go into it, I think, with that state of mind of it is just a means, like you're probably ahead of a good amount of people. That being said, though, it gets cutthroat, and like business is business, you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't know if I would enter a market like that, like to compete, because if you're going to compete, it's like especially in game B, there are people who are 100,000% game A, and it's like you're getting eaten alive. And for me, I'm just like, I'm gonna leave that out. But if you have that understanding that it is the means and not the end, and the tenacity to compete with people, of just like, okay, fine, if we're competing, I'll compete, and I'll compete better than you. That's the mindset I have with art and whatnot.
Exactly, yeah.
And if that's the case, that makes sense. it's just I kind of want to argue for both sides there because I could go forever about how bad statistics are, and but like I understand so like I kind of have my decision like firm, but it's funny to word out the other side because there is that like yeah like numbers are numbers, money is money. Wouldn't that be nice if you could get that up? And there are all these tools to get into, but it's just like for me it's like it's so cutthroat the competition. I'm just like, you know what, I'm just gonna go over here and do my thing. But if you want to play, like you gotta play though. You gotta play hard is the thing. That's my gauging of the thing. But yeah, if it's coming from a place like that, like I feel like it is, you gotta leg up on people because I know some business people, and heart is a very destitute value.
It is,
thing.
yeah.
Like so to come from that kind of a place and be like a person who just it comes from their heart. Again, in the same way that you take somebody who is unfamiliar with these intellectual circles, bring them in here, new light. I'm hoping with me being the rapper, the jokey rapper that I am, and entering my accounting classes and ultimately becoming a tutor, like that happened in my community college. Like
accounting, I believe.
Yes, accounting and economics. So before the pandemic hit, I was actually doing all that. So, and I can only imagine. Yeah, I think I mentioned a thing like what people were thinking when they saw me with my orange self and my, I was being all loud in the lab and whatever. But that's the point, right? Like you would go into an accounting lab and be like, my accounting tutor, oh hello, let me tell you about accounting. But it's just like, let's talk about accounting. Let's have some fun with this.
Exactly.
And being somebody who is genuinely enthusiastic about all that. So I like being in places where it seems like I shouldn't be there.
Yes,
and
that's what I'm doing with this.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I'm all for that. Yeah. Anything that goes for that is just up my alley completely.
Yeah, and I mean, first of all, business. I was a business and engineering major. The reason I did that is because the reason I did business engineering, right, is because like you, I have so many different interests. I'm like, I don't want to collapse from a wave to a particle. Like right now, I'm it's like I'm into this, I'm into that, I'm into that. And it's like, you know what? I'm just gonna get those business engineering skills, and one day it's gonna come in handy. Guess what? It's happening right now. You go on my Twitter, I'm game Aing the shit out of this, and I'm going too far, and that's the thing. I'm testing. Like I have no problem bending, breaking rules, but the problem here, it's happening right now as we speak. Is that people are starting to push back on me. These people in this spaces, they're like, "Hey, you're going a little bit far." I'm like, oh, "Okay, I see." But it's like I have to test the limits because to me, it's just like they're not weaponizing game A against game A enough. They're just they're too into too into the game B. That's the thing right now. So it's just like,
wait, what do you mean?
What
do you mean? What are you doing?
Oh,
with you're going too far. What does that mean?
Oh, okay, so I'm gonna go into a little bit inside baseball. I'm gonna leave out names because I'm not trying to be all crazy. I'm trying to stay game B, but just like I'm kind of like pointing to this person or that space, and then I'm promoting them, sexing it up, and it's like it kind of brings that like marketing kind of energy, and then it might there's this muddling where it's just like, okay, am I promoting their stuff or am I appropriating it as part of my thing? And that's actually something I'm working on, because it's just like, again, it's just like talking about the ego, the ego as a tool. Like I'm trying to be like, I'm pointing at them, and then I'm also trying to point at me, and we both grow. It's positive sum. However, my tactics, I'm not gonna lie, like they could be a little bit questionable. I could be like the positive sum dynamics justify the means, but then I'm acting like they're participating in my project when it's just kind of like I'm pointing to them, and then I'm also pointing to myself at the same time. So that's what I mean by that. And also like talking about like the competition. Like competition is good. Competition is a little bit of a dirty word in the game B space, because it's kind of like it's kind of like the negative sum dynamics. We're talking about the rivalrous dynamics, the kind of competition I'm bringing into this, and this also happened. Like I noticed it in the space, like you had one space here, for example, like Rebel Wisdom is one space A, space B, space C, right? And then let's say the space B started like upping up their game, and then I noticed the other spaces started upping their game. Another space enters, and then I see and then I enter. And like, like I may be, kind of projecting, but I kind of see like they're starting to adjust as well. So that's the thing. Like to me, competition, like I'm bringing competition, but not like I'm trying to steal your people. Like I'm trying to get you better, get this space better, right? And it's just like it's like self-improvement. It's it's natural selection, but in the best way. It's like if you're not serving the community in the best way, then you're like people are gonna go another way. Like I said, like I know, like that's why I respect how pure you are with like, I'm not about the numbers, because just like if I get numbers, to me, that's something I'm working on. I don't want to go, so I'm trying to step back from the marketing, stepping back from just bringing in numbers and metrics, because just like what kind of metrics are coming in? What do I have to do to bring in those metrics? Because one of the things I stated before, like I tweeted this out, I was like, I'm not afraid of failure. I'm afraid of success by virtue of losing my soul. And like, that's one of the things. That's what I'm working on this, and I'm dancing with this, and I'm making mistakes. I have no problem making mistakes, as you could probably tell by what I'm doing with this and what I've done in my previous episodes. But like, again, like, yeah, that dance is, I'm working on that dance is, I guess, my point here.
Yeah, and I think the way that I've simplified all those decisions related to that is just, again, valuing novelty over everything. Is what you're doing different from what everybody else is doing? Yes, great, keep at it, do it louder. Like that's it for me. Like, and like I say, like you're gonna get hate, you're gonna get pushback, you're gonna get people who are on board with it. But lately, I think it's just the way that these circles are as being very tame and kumbaya. I kind of just like the idea of injecting a little bit of something in
That's
there.
it. Mischievous element. Just
yeah, but because you can be as sportsmanlike as you want, but if the other team doesn't know you're playing a game, then it's like they just don't like, right? So but that's why it's important to be like, you can't just tell everybody, hey, I'm gonna do game A stuff in a game B space. Everybody will obviously be like, no, don't, that's not what you're supposed to do. But it's like, wait, hear me out.
Okay.
And when I started making music, I was kind of thinking the same thing the whole time of, I want to make nerdy hip hop music. And if you spoke to me in high school 2 years into making music, I'd be like, hey, I want to make nerdy hip hop. And then people would be like, ew, no. And I'd be like, no, wait, hear me out. And then I have nothing to say because all I have is just garbage music. Now I enter a space where 10 years in, I'm just like, hey, I want to make nerdy music. Ew, what is that? Get away. Wait, hear me out. Foosh. Like,
there it is.
Catalog. back catalog. It's like, I don't need you to tell me that idea isn't working. It worked in 2017. I got it. So that's a big thing too. Just being like, putting your money where your mouth is before anything. Like I was saying, like I was waiting a good amount of time before I entered a space like this, being like, okay, now I think I'm ready. I was still iffy. It's like, I don't think it's ready like that. And that was the thing. Like I wanted to make more songs to make it more obvious that I was coming from a place of this game be kind of state of mind, this intellectual something or other. Like that only would take more songs, right? Because the large majority of the songs are just jokey references and that's it. And you wouldn't catch it at all. That I, like somebody who speaks like this is behind all the music that's like that. You wouldn't guess that at all. I feel that's one more reliable way to I don't want to say shut people up, but like to respond to to respond to those kind of critiques, right? Because obviously if you say I have a great idea and people are like, no, that's a stupid idea, it's like, okay, all you have is the idea, right? And so it's like, oh, that's stupid. It's like, oh well, right? Like if we're just talking in the idea space, but if I say I have this idea for this ultra thing, people are like, no, it's like, right? It's like now I have the thing to prove, at least in some way, that it exists already, right? And that's tough at the beginning, because like that's pitching for this or that. That's saying we have this, I don't know, I don't want to speak too much in business terms, but being like startup, it's just like an idea. It's like, hey, what about this? Like I'm very much an idea guy, and I know that's like not thought of very highly. And I understand why that wouldn't be. So the way you get rid of that is being like turning your ideas into something real. And for 6-7 years, I was just working on my craft, not caring at all about what anybody thought, right? Before any sort of following started for me. Before I uploaded, like I was uploading to YouTube or whatever, but it's like, it's not like anybody was watching my teenage raps or whatever. Like I was just working. Something, 10,000 hours. And then I came in as like, okay, now, right? What's that Gandhi quote where it's like, first they laugh at you, and then
Oh, yeah,
you
and-
laugh at them, and then you win or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. I, don't,
Yeah, it was
I
like-
think people know what you're talking about.
yeah, first they laugh and then you win something.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing where it's like, yeah, of course. I mean, I think about this a lot, like these narratives of lone inventors who are in their garages and they're just like, oh, what about this? And then everybody was, I mean, there's so many like stories like that in business of people who got so many doors shut in their face and so many that's never gonna do anything. And it sounds kind of pseudo motivational to be like, don't listen to the haters. Like it's like, but at the same time, just to acknowledge their criticism and do it anyway.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that a quote too of just like listen to and then just do what you want to do anyway, something like that. I select for novelty. I just want to do something different for the sake of doing something different. If people don't like it, at least they don't like what you're doing in a different way than they're used to disliking something. That's a goal too. You see what I'm saying there?
Yeah.
Like, I hope that people hear my music and like, if they hate it, okay, it's not like I'm offended or anything. It's like, if you don't like it, yeah, I understand. I've reverse engineered that to be a compliment as well, because if you don't like it, you don't get it. Hooray. Right? Yeah, it's impenetrable, more proof that what I'm doing is working. But like, I just trust that nobody can look at the project I'm doing and be like, wow, this is just another one of those things, right? It's just like another copy of this. It's like, I hope that they at least see this and dislike it for something else, because that's unfortunate if people just dislike what you're doing because it exists already, right? We already have one of those. That is really tragic. But if people are going to dislike me anyway, why not have them dislike me in a way that makes it so they don't default to that kind of disliking of something, right? I don't like that because you're being too loud or whatever, and I don't like loud people, so that's it. It's like, I don't like that because, wait a second, I've never seen anything like that before. I'm not exactly sure why I don't like it. So this is how I've kind of built my defenses against any sort of thing like that, against criticism, against people not getting it. It's just like, as long as I've been doing this for years, and it's just me sitting with this music, not pressured by any, like, all the like hate and stuff that I would refer to, it's kind of hypothetical. Because like, I've been fortunate enough to have a good amount of people support me or literally not get what I'm even doing, right? Because in person, when I was at my university, like, and I was go up on stage and rap next to all my rapper buddies. Some of them did look like rappers, some of them didn't. Most of them didn't. And so we were a little motley bunch. So it's kind of been this whole time of people either get where I'm coming from, and I do get support because, again, I've always been like a good writer. I was probably a good writer before anything else. Before I made a good song, oh my God, I wrote really good lyrics before I made a good song. But
cool.
So I would get support. But I think a lot of people just didn't know what to make of me. And that became the goal more than anything. If you select for that, and again, not having that take primacy over stepping on other people's toes and being rude to people, right? Because there's a way to move fast and break things that breaks.
That's what I'm doing right now. That's the problem. Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. But it's like another thing that I kind of have gathered through the making of Ultra has been to go big and not work my way up. Instead, go big and work down. So like, I was in a play last year, and I remember the director, it was a comedic play, and the director was like, it is much easier to tell an actor who is going too big to dial it back than it is to tell an actor who's really small to big it up a little bit, right? It's like, I first started making Ultra, so Cartoon Violence, first song. That intro where I'm just making all those sounds, that was really early on in the project, right? And so it was in the recording process of it, and it was kind of a tone setter. Like, it was like a really whacked out warm up for my voice of like, okay, before when I was in the studio at Northridge, I would, do my little rap thing and be all whatever. But now there are so many stories in Northridge of me going into that library. And the first 30 some songs were recorded in a library at Cal State Northridge, a library. Like, imagine all the voices you're hearing.
That's
dead silent everywhere else. They let me. I don't know. But like, it really allowed me to just be that crazy. And it's not actively not care, but I didn't even notice. It took me like a year and a half to even realize that the walls in that studio weren't as soundproof as I thought they were. Like, I was like, dang, I'm hearing people from the door of the library. I'm like,
people
oh God.
Like, I have no idea how loud I am. I'm just talking to like, stop screaming. Like, I'm screaming, sorry.
Yeah, I'm like, same. Like, exactly, that's the thing.
a jumbotron with a red nose on, finna yike all up in it. Life was surreal, had the pipe from beginning. Said that I would pass you the mic, but I didn't, my bad. I just kinda thought you were kidding. Bullet bounce off my chest, did a hit like dang. Pick it with the brain like Krang. Man of money bringing you the bum 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 bang.
See, because there's also the thing of not caring. There is saying, I don't care. And then there's doing, I don't care, let's say. Where if you say you don't care, you care enough to say you don't care. While I'm over here I'm not even listening, right? It sounds stupid to say all that hate you're saying, I don't even hear it. But it's kind of what I'm saying. Like,
I get it.
To put words on it, it's like, yeah, of course, then you're actually actualizing it. But it's like, I got some comments recently that were like, you're trash or whatever, I forget. But they're like negative comments. And I was just like, all right, acknowledged. I'm not going to not listen. I'm going to be like, I don't care. It's like, I'm going to let that hurt because that hurts. And it'll be stupid if I didn't let that hurt. Be like, oh, I'm immune to criticism. It's just like, no, that hurts in a way that somebody's like, oh, you're ugly. It's like, oh, it's like, I don't care. But in the back, it's just like, oh, like to not deny that. But at the same time, to be like, okay, fine. Feel that hurt completely. Have it eventually go away because it eventually does no matter what. Yeah, I think in my experience, it goes away quicker the deeper you feel it. Right? Like, to get super emotional out of nowhere, but like just to feel really, really, really bad for a long time, and then you just tapped. And it's just like, all right, I'm done feeling bad, versus drawing it out over a month or something.
Yeah, like again, pretending, bypassing. It's like, oh no, it doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect me.
Yeah,
no, it hurts.
it's
No,
like
it hurts.
A lot of sadness, short amount of time, or a little annoying, nagging sadness over like, let's say years. That could be very problematic. But like, so taking that approach and being like, all right, I'm tapped, I'm good on the emotion, back to work. That's why I end doubt that with that. It's just like, all right, doubts, oh my God, what am I doing? All right, back to work. Let's get back to it.
Yeah, I mean, dude, this is freaking amazing. I feel like I'm having like a therapy session right now because it's just like, because what I'm experiencing right now, I feel like you've been like with your own artistic journey, like kind of been through some of that. Because like right now, because here's the thing, it's not so much like, I mean, this is something of course I had to work on, like not caring what people think, and like I'm to the point where I'm like, again, I'm not trying to bypass, I'm not trying to deny that I don't care what people think. But it's just like, whatever. I mean, look, if you listen to my conversation, you listen to the first 2 episodes, so trust me, I'm being super open. I'm putting myself out there. I mean, the thing is like right now, it's like, it's kind of like I'm like, I have a feeling I'm really pissing some people off. Like I'm pissing important people off that I'm trying to like, I'm trying to be like one of you guys. And oh shit, I'm pissing you people off. That's probably not the right direction I want to go. So that's why I'm kind of like, because otherwise I'm like, whatever. But oh no, if I'm burning bridges, I'm putting myself in a bad zone. So I'm trying to bring it back. And it's just like, the thing about us two, I realize like, we're effing synthesizers. Because like it's kind of like, you know, like I'm you know, I do a lot of research on all of my guests, you know, before. I'm like, I'm researching you, right? I'm looking all through our stuff. And I'm like, okay, what do we talk about? It actually turned out, what can I not talk about with Gabriel? What can I not talk about? I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, okay, I'm just going to throw something out there and we're going to start talking. And just like, we're like, that's again, like, I think like part of what connects is like, we're synthesizers. Cause like, again, like part of the reason that I started this project is right, is I want to talk to regular people. And to me, like to an extent, you could even say like being embedded in this real world is actually like having another aspect of yourself that you're synthesized, you're connected to reality rather than living in some ivory tower. Because like that's the thing. Like again, like, to me, like when I go like in the intro episode of Noetic Nomads, I'm talking about, you know what? One of the reasons why I started this, I'm sick of just freaking, you know, the experts, you know, broadcast mentality, one to many. You telling everyone what the right opinion is, right? And then I'm talking, that was more so from the game A context, but also in the game B context, it's not that much different, folks. You got these ubermenches up top. They're being like, look at how smart I am. I'm gonna sit here and you're gonna listen to me for an hour. And I'm just like, dude, it's like, you know, just like, it's the same thing. Again, I'm not trying to judge too much, but it's just, I feel like it's the same thing. It's just they're compartmentalized, people sitting around a guru and all this stuff. And I'm just like, when I looked at all your stuff, like, you could hang intellectually just about damn near anyone that I'm in like these like rebel wisdom, stoicism. So I don't want to blow up your ego. Just pretend like I didn't say that. You're an idiot, Gabriel. You're a moron, okay? But it's just like, but you know, it's just like let's just stop. Like, dude, like you like this, and you could tell like with your wordplay. I'm reading through your lyrics on Genius and your annotations. I'm like, this reference, that reference. Whoa, what are you talking about? Here, there. Synthesizing, bring it on to this one thing, bring it on to Inside Baseball, and like that's the thing. Like that's I think one of the things that separates. Okay, I don't want to disconnect. Again, I don't want to be like we're better than them, but like that's what's unique about us. I believe like what's we're bringing to this space, and I'm glad that I was able to connect with you. I was glad that I'm starting this, and then like. Again, what we were talking about before, where I'm like, I don't quite know what I'm doing right now, but I just feel like I'm putting this out there. Later, I look back, you know, I'm observing. I'm like, oh, I see. Oh, it's because of this, that, and that reason. So that is amazing. I'm starting to realize that my work is actually, you know, it makes sense, and that there are people like me out there, like you, Gabriel.
Exactly.
Exactly.
I don't know, just like fostering autonomy is what came to mind as well with the way these circles kind of work. And this is what has been frustrating for me, seeing this keep popping up in any culture or anything, left, right, here in these spaces of here are the people who have figured it out. Let's just listen to the people who have figured it out. And you have this, the people who have figured it out, and then the people at the bottom who are just doing Daniel Schmachtenberger impressions, unfortunately. Right? Like,
I so empathize with that because okay, just real quick. For like, I got into rebel wisdom because of Daniel Schmachtenberger. I was like, this guy's geez, like I heard about like when I was a biohacker, into biohacking, a neurohacker collective, I was into all that. And then the reason I joined Sensemaking 101, again, if you listen to the first episode, it's like because he was there, and I was like, oh my god, Daniel Schmachtenberger, he's there, I'm gonna go. And then over time, as I developed myself, I was like, dude. You're pretty smart, Daniel. You know, Sensei, D-Schmach, you got your stuff together. But just like, you know what? I'm figuring this stuff out on my own. You know what? There's this things over here that actually I believe that, you know, I don't actually agree with you 100% on that. I'm like, oh my God. You know, it's like that, you know.
On Cartoon Violence, a lyric that turned into a mantra for me was no fan shit. And that helped me word out the philosophy I wanted to take forward with the project early on as 2017 of what do I say? I don't want to go to concerts. I'm not going to pay to show up somewhere to see this artist. I'm not going to wear other people's shirts anymore. I'm just going to work on my own artistry and be my own person and see these artists I see on these music publications and at festivals. I'm just going to look at them and be like, okay, they're not gods, right? They're not otherworldly something or others. These are people, just like I'm people.
Yeah.
I need to see them as coworkers. I remember I thought about that. I was like, oh, these are just colleagues of mine who are in the same industry. Not like in me and Kanye West are best buddies. And we think it's just like, that's a man. So am I.
Yeah, exactly.
And if he can do this brandy whatever thing, then I can too. And I feel like that's the goal. Like for me, my goal with music for the longest time, again, was to be different. And that means specifically more so, I wanted to have my own style of music. That was actually the pretty explicit goal from early. Like, I want to not have to sound like everybody else. Like, hearing any artist who's big, like Michael Jackson, Prince comes to mind, like artists who is just like, as soon as you hear that, it's like, that's their song. It's like, it's not like confusing or like, I don't know if those people work, but like certain artists you hear where it's like, you hear tight beats. I don't know if you're familiar with that whole scene, but it's like,
no, I'm not sure.
Okay. Well, people, up and coming producers, this feels funny to explain. Up and coming music producers on YouTube, they make tight beats. So I'm like, who can I say that you've heard of? Like, I was gonna say Playboy Cardi, but like certain artists type beat. So Mr. Master type beat.
Okay.
Like, and that actually sounds different from a somebody else type beat, right? Okay. So they're actually differentiated. So like, that's the real indication, I guess. That's a real tangible indication of how distinct your style is. If somebody can make a type beat like yours and just it actually
Oh,
is.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I
Like,
mean?
yeah, I got you. Yeah,
Like
yeah. Okay.
this rapper would sound really great on this beat because they rap on beats like this, and I noticed that, so I'm gonna make a beat that kind of sounds like those ones, and it's gonna sound unlike any others because the rapper raps on beats that are kind of like this and not any others. So that was the goal. I wanted to have my own style, not that specific, like type beat, whatever, but having that. Oh, I want to make my own thing. I want to provide. That was it. It was just I want to have my own style, but that turned into a deeper thing of I want to be my own person. That's what it turned into, right? That was the question I was asking the whole time. Like, how do I end up being different from everybody else? And that was one technique that I picked up on. I've been saying, seeing things as both enough and insufficient, kind of. So, which is to say, seeing something as perfectly good, understanding exactly like why something works and why something makes sense, and at this, and 100%, like, yeah, it works. It's not missing anything. There's a way to understand it such that, yeah, I get you. That's getting something, right? And then to be like, wait a second, there is a me-shaped hole in this, not in an egotistical way, but like there's a thing that is missing in here, and it's going to sound very egotistical to say it's me, that's the thing that's missing, but like my lens, my specific something of there's this gamey thing and it makes perfect sense, but nobody's seeing it from this angle because nobody automatically sees anything from this angle,
exactly,
right?
yeah.
I don't participate in these communities like that, right? I'm not in the Stoa, I'm not in the rebellism thing, which is the point, right? Like, but I feel like this goal is definitely, I won't say definitely, but I feel like I don't see this goal there of something like what you're doing, where you're starting your own thing, right? It's like you could have just been somebody who was in the rebel wisdom thing and being like super about all these things, but it's like the goal for me was like, for you with Schmachtenberger, for me with like hip hop and Broadway and comedy and now this space like that of being like, you stare at it long enough and you're like, okay, I get it, I love it, but like, couldn't this be a little different? Couldn't this be better? Like, what comes to mind is design. Like, I watched something that was really formative in the development of Ultra when it first started was watching the Netflix documentary Abstract, The Art of Design. Do you know what I'm talking about?
It's funny. It was on my list for so long, I never got around to watching it.
Yeah, well, yeah. So that changed my life,
really?
and helped. It was huge, and like it really was what motivated that approach. Really, definitely with the release structure. I didn't think of how I was going to release it until I think I watched that, and I was like, oh, album you keep adding songs to. Like, take something that exists already and ask the question. This is what I got from it. I don't think they say it explicitly, but the principle I got was look at an industry, look at a field, whatever, and ask the question, what is everybody not doing that they should be doing? Which is a specific question, right? It's like, what is everybody not doing? Like, oh, nobody's talking about these things. I don't know, like in Klingon, it's like, yeah, novelty, good, but like, should we just be doing? I don't know, but like, viewing all these ideas through a hip hop thing so it can translate a little better to new people. It's like, what? Me? I'm just like, why? And it was just constantly realizing these things of like, why hasn't anybody merged nerdiness and hip hop the way I have? How come nobody's merged hip hop and novelty music with the kind of respect that the history and pantheon of artists and novelty music deserve? Why isn't anybody mixing hip hop and Broadway in a way that isn't Hamilton? Right? Like, and just adding on to like, why isn't anybody taking all these things together and also smuggling in intellectualism to touch all these people to whatever? I was like, I can look at stuff like Hamilton, let's say, so just because I mentioned it, and understand the influence it had and how great it is. And at the same time, be like, I could do that 10 times better, especially with Hamilton. I don't want to go into it, but like having that kind of thing, I feel like that should be the goal with spaces like this. And what comes to mind is tutoring too. So when I started being a tutor, I took a class because you had to take a certain class to be a tutor, and it was about how to be a tutor. And the main thing was that the role of a tutor is to foster autonomy. The show of a good tutor is if a student shows up, you teach them how to do the homework, they get it, they leave, and they never come back. Kind of. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Of like, they don't need you anymore. You didn't give them the answer. You taught them how to. You didn't teach them to. You didn't give them a fish. You taught them how to fish. It's like, fine, go, right? Like, you don't need me anymore. Do your own thing. And that's it with these thinkers, specifically with the people and the ideas of just, I can imagine someone being familiar with all this other stuff, like having this other experience and entering this space and being aware of the game B stuff and all these intellectual whatevers, and then being like, I bet, and then dipping, and then going to do all those things in their field, right? That's the thing. It's like, why not be the Daniel Schmachtenberger of fill in the blank, right? Like,
exactly. Yeah.
because nobody was him before him, right? As far as like, well, maybe, but like something like that, like a name where it's like, if people talk about John Vervaeke, it's like the meaning crisis. There you go. It's this lecture series, it's this work, it's these ideas and not those. It's like, and what is that? It's saying that old Kanye West only sampled certain kinds of soul things. He sped them up, the chipmunk sample thing. That's Kanye, right? That's only Kanye, right? And so for me, I was like, okay, the color orange, the word bang, the word ultra, the style of production. Now I'm hearing these type beats of me. Not like they made them like online, but like fans who have hit me up. And it's to the point where, you know, I was making the beats by myself for a good amount of time. And now it's clear enough for me to, I have the Produced by Thomas Garza song on Ultra, which somebody else made that. Somebody just hit me out of the blue, said I was inspired by Ultra. Check out this beat. And I rapped on it because it was dope, right? And now I'm running into people who make these kinds of beats. And I'm just like, okay, there we go. It's flattering, but it's also like, okay, take this thing I made and run with it, right? For a good amount of time, I was sitting on the instrumentals because I had that business mindset of, eventually this thing is going to get big and I'm going to make bank off these instrumentals. But I was like, one random day, I was just like, who cares? And I put them all out. I was just like, open source it, right? It's like, if you want to do something with this, like, take it, right? It's like, I'm not trying to make money off it. It's just like, all I can hope is that people see Ultra for the development of self that it was for me. And they can in turn use it to inform the development of themselves. If that isn't clear, right, amidst all the jokes and whatever, that's why the obscurity is advantageous, because we can just talk about it, right? It's not like I'm too busy. It's like, you want to talk about what really goes on behind this? Like, there's a lot to it, and it goes deeper than the music. And none of that will ever be communicated, I think, clearly in the music, these kinds of ideas. I'm not going to talk about, like, I'm not going to make a song about autonomy and how you should think for yourself and be yourself. It's like,
exactly.
Understanding these media, right? Those ideas work great for a long-term, long-form conversation type thing. That's what I've learned in my exploration into communicating these ideas through music. All of these ideas, game B stuff, all these game theory, blah, blah, blahs, they make for great long-form conversation. They make for terrible songs, right? Like, dude, no, right? Like, imagine, like, on paper, me saying I want to rap about school. That sounds like a garbage song, right?
No, I actually had to throw this out just for the hell of it. Just do it. Just troll game B anti-rivalrous is self-terminating civilization. Do it. Just do it, and not like, I don't even know what to say. Just do it. I don't even know if you're gonna be serious about it. Just put it out there and just troll people. Troll yourself with it.
I am already. Like, just in doing it in the style that I'm doing. Like, I just feel like it is kind of a piss take just be talking about this stuff next to you heard Inside Baseball. I'm talking about
exactly.
Like in the same song, right? Like it's
18 minutes, freaking exactly.
There's a lot in there, and it's not just an 18-minute diatribe about.
I know it's like nested. You talk about nested wordplay like this,
and like that's, I feel, how this gets across. It is doing, I think, what you're saying too, of putting a different outfit on these ideas and having it not be a suit or like whatever, being just a t-shirt or like a hoodie and like this stupid thing. Like, it's the same thing though, but underneath all this whatever. And that's the point. If I'm using Ultra as an authentic expression of myself, I don't think about these ideas that often. I'm listening to music, and listening to music is the main thing, honestly. So these ideas aren't like the forefront of my mind. Like, I only became aware of them recently. So obviously I'm going to rap more about music and movies and entertainment because I'm just more used to that. Like, that's just who I am. And if time goes on, again, like as I make more songs, like it'll be there more. But I think the ultimate goal, like I really think that's the way this needs to go. People need to like this needs to be a space where people learn how to be themselves, right? And that's why I feel so passionate about being in this space. Just I feel kind of weird, and I tell everybody that I talk about this with like, I think I got it, right?
Yeah.
Like I think like if you're asking a question, who am I? Why am I here? That is an enormous question.
Yeah.
People go entire lives without answering it. It's like I got it in 2017. I think I got something here. I don't ever want to be like I got it in the way that we're talking about of everybody just listen to me. I got it, but being like I have something here a little bit, and the foundation will always be shaky, but it is steady enough for me to run with it and be like, I do think I got right. So it's like I think I got something here is all I can tell people. And the I think is in like 72 point font, and like the 12 point font is like I got something here. But I got something here. I do think that if I put on my Mr. Master hoodie, and it's like I really got something here. And I think if you let me in a space like this, I think it'll work a little bit. So, but that's the thing. Like I'm just like, yes, exactly what you're doing. Of get it enough to notice something is missing, and notice that the whole is shaped like you. Like to be your own thinker, have your own unique something. It's like the example of music and personal philosophy just intersecting. It's like I want to be myself. I want to make unique music. I want to be a unique person. I honestly thought about that. Like when I was first making Ultra, I was like, I had that realization of in order to really make unique music, I need to be a unique person and have it start there. Like I need to live life in a weird way. Like I wore the hood, I wore the outfit often. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't like, I was kind of just staying inside and smoking weed and writing and stuff like that for a good amount of time. And I just hope it sounds like that's what I was really doing. I wasn't like, I had the privilege to like not need to like work a job or anything. Like I did have a good amount of time. So I hope it just kind of sounds like that was the life I was really living. And I think you could tell if you hear an underground rapper, like in terms of presence on record and how much their lyrics map to their personality, whether or not they're lying, right? It's like I think you can sniff that out, and it takes tapping into that. And I think that's what I can provide in these kind of spaces, be like, before really throwing yourself into these game B things, like be a game B person and live life as a game B person, which is to say somebody who lives different than all these other things that are going on. Like look at everything in your life and be like, okay, fine, great, this worked. But be like, this is all missing something. And what it is missing is me right now and in the future, right? Not in an egotistical way, but like, fostering autonomy, being your own thinker, like that's so important. And I just feel like it's missing.
Yeah, I mean, I just came up to like I was having these inklings before. I'm like, talk about game A, and then you got game B, and I'm like, what if we're starting game C right now? You know what I'm saying? Like, what is like, you know, because that's the thing, like, you know, because like you're talking about being your own person, the differentiation. Because like it's like what do I do? What I do a lot is like, it's kind of like with romance. Like I'll fall in love with an idea or within space or with some sort of space or like, you know, like a group, and I'll be like, oh, I'm so into that. They're so amazing, you know, and the rose-colored glasses, right? And then over time, like, but it's almost like a strategy. It's like a kind of like a primordial strategy, because whatever it is, like a school of thought, whatever it is, right? I'll embed myself. I'll be like, this is amazing. I'll feel into all of it, and over time, I'm like, okay, and then I'm like, wait a minute, what the hell is that? I was like, wait, what? That doesn't make sense. I'm like, what? I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, thank you, goodbye. Like that's what it is. Like I have to feel in to get a sense. And then I'm like, oh, okay, now I see. Then I jump out, and then I almost kind of like, I repeat the process. If anyone like listens or watches these episodes or looks at all my posts on the website, they see like I over and over I talk about rebel wisdom, Stoa, rebel wisdom, Stoa. Like I came from that. I came from rebel wisdom and Stoa, right? And I was deeply in that space. But now I'm pulling back, being like, because I'm creating my own space. And I'm literally creating my own space, and it's coming into being. And you are one of the foundations. Like look at us. We're not the people being invited to speak at these places. Okay, they're not bringing us. And if you go to my second episode, you see like one of the things, because I was like, you know, there's no one in there, no sane, rational person would invite me to be like a guest speaker, because I'm like, who the hell is this guy? He's like, what the hell is he? And I'm like, well, I guess I got to create my own platform, and here it is. So I mean, yeah, I just want to say, I mean, it's great connecting with you, and I'm very excited what's gonna come from the space, what's coming from you, and I'll love to hear like, what do you want to do next? I don't want to say necessarily take it to the next level, or I don't want to push anything. I really want to know like what you want to do, like going on from here on out.
Me and you?
I mean, you. Yeah.
I don't know. See, because I'm gonna say the answer that I said in the conversation with Alex, just because that comes to mind. My plan has been just to expose myself to as many different possibilities of what things could be as possible, right?
Okay.
So would Ultra work very smoothly as a vaudevillian style variety theatrical show? Yes, and in the pipe dreamingest sense, that's kind of what I'm aiming for. I've said before that the goal is to have a traveling circus, and I'm not ruling that out. But ultimate pipe dream goal is literally that. I'm not joking. Like that was to
like live vaudeville
animals, like it's like stunts, all of it, right? And I have a lot to say about the circus. Nothing to say nothing of all that, but like I hope you can tell. Like if I say I'm super into the circus, that can inform some things with Ultra as well, right? So again, like just being all over. But lately, I've been entertaining more being somebody in these kinds of spaces, not like professionally or something, but being like something. So it started out with music, right? It's like before, obviously, like wouldn't it be nice to do the whole traditional musician route of label, tour, merch, that kind of route? I don't know if I would rule that out if the opportunity presented itself. I'm not really aiming for it, but I kind of want to just throw myself out there. I want to keep teaching myself stuff. And this was the plan before everything happened with the pandemic. Like when I was supposed to start at San Diego State this fall doing my business stuff. And my goal was, I'm just going to I'm going to go everywhere. I'm just going to throw myself wherever and expose myself to as many opportunities and in turn germs as possible. And then there went that. But what it led to was this conversation series that I had with my listeners, and it really informed my thinking and led to opportunities like the one that I'm getting at with you. But in terms of the long run thing, like one thing that I really want to factor into the project now is other people, right? Because again, I really would love it. I don't know how this would happen, but I hope that somebody could stumble across the project. Oh, I don't know. Listen to it, understand it, and then see themselves in it, right? Like to do that for what I'm doing too, to like create something so big that it's like, so that's one thing, like it being dependent on me and my vision or whatever, but also other people's. Like all the time, like people just hit me up like out of the blue, completely unexpectedly, right? And it's like, I wonder if one day that'll happen where somebody will run into the big mass of things with Ultra and be like, and start making music that is inspired by that, or are taking the ideas or whatever. Like, I don't know. That's the thing. Like Ultra has been a very emergent project. And lately I've been thinking a lot about emergence, and I want to have things stay emergent. I don't want to try to do stuff. Like what I am going to try to do is as much stuff as possible, because if you stay limited, then there is potential for emergence, because there always is, but a little bit less so, right? Because you're kind of staying in the one lane versus all that potential for all that. And I'm just like, so I don't ever want to have an answer to the question, where are we going with this, right? If everything goes exactly the way I want it to, I shouldn't be able to answer that question. I'm not supposed to know right now what I'm going to be doing, right? So it's like, I don't know, but it's going to be something different. I trust that it's going to be something with more people. And if it is nothing, I will have succeeded anyway.
You got it. I mean, I stated, I just tweeted last night, the purest offering as a gift is that which has no recipient. So if you're just giving out your gifts to the world, that's it.
Facts.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. Lovely stuff, Gabriel. I'm so glad we connected, and like, I'm sure you had an amazing conversation with Tyson. If it was anything like this, I mean, again, like,
Tyson.
yeah, I mean, it's just like it makes so much sense, right? I was like, in Rebels Wisdom, I see Gabriel. Why does Tyson come to mind? Shoot him over to Tyson. I'm like,
and we clicked like that. Wow. Like, oh
yeah.
Like,
I mean, like, I don't want to blow your spot or anything, but like, I mean, like, are you two like working on anything? Because like, I think it would make sense if like,
no.
No.
We'll see. I mean, we're definitely.
You never know. I don't want to collapse anything to like this, but I'm like, to me, it's like, it almost seems natural that like something should come out of this, you know? So I mean,
we're gonna keep talking. I know that for sure.
Yeah. Okay.
We're gonna stick with that. I guess we'll see what happens. We'll see what.
Exactly. Let it emerge. Exactly.
Yeah.
Let it emerge. Exactly. All right. So again, okay. If you've watched the last couple episodes, you'll know what I'm gonna ask next. What is one question that you want to ask me? Whatever you want, I'll answer it honestly.
Oh, I forgot about this. Yeah, I am the podcast now.
You are the host.
I want to ask you something about Ultra. Like,
yeah,
can I ask? Like, I like asking people just like, what do you make of it? Like, I wish I could have asked this before I said everything, but like, because you've done all this research, right? It's like, what do you make? Because it matters as much to me, right? That's art, right? I make something, I give it. And it's not supposed to be math or science where I just give you the answer. It's just like, hey, here's a bunch of stuff. I don't know. What do you see in it? And I have my thing. I just told you for a couple hours what it was, kind of. And like I said, the point is having people run with it. So I'm always just like, because I'm just here making music in my room in this exact spot. Like this is the room where I record and everything. But I'm always like, what are people even seeing in this? And I hope that people, I mean, and now I hope you see like the potential of like all the other stuff, but like, what do you make of it?
Well, I mean, like usually I would need to like put it on repeat for like weeks, months to like really get into it. But I'm like, I have listened to the whole thing and it's,
okay.
It's look, I'm not blowing smoke up your ass, but I'm listening. I'm like, wow, like you putting this, like, I mean, this is good stuff, man. I mean, like, this is like, and like, I'm very picky, especially with hip hop. Cause like, to me, like, I almost like my identity kind of with hip hop was like, it was kind of like my past. It was like, I was into hip hop. I was like, kind of like a wannabe, you know, all that gangster hip hop, New York. And I'm like, okay, I moved past that. But then like, listen to this and I'm like, wow, like this is not just stuff that I would have listened to back then, but I'm like, this is stuff like I could actually bump right now. I like it. Okay, so I'm gonna do live Sensemaking right now. I like it. It's unique. You're extremely charismatic. You're very phonic. You're very visceral in it. Transgressiveness about it definitely running throughout. Kind of digging into this, like I forget, like you have like what's it, like Patreon ad, like that's brilliant. Like I can't even name it. Like, you know, going through all these tracks because it's just like you just poke it in. You're being like the Gadfly. You're being like the you know, the hip hop Socrates. I mean, if I can say that, you know, it's like that.
For the price of a single cup of coffee, you too can help feed a starving artist and help him fulfill his dream of becoming a professional attention whore. Without your monetary donation, I will have to endure the wry destitution of having to earn my money through hard and honest work, like the rest of you peasant audience members. Donate within the next 30 seconds, and for every piece of shitty content I make, I'll put your shitty name on it. Will that make you happy? What about if I record a really long, boring podcast?
Like, there's definitely, like, again, like, I see what's happening between the words. It's like you're trying to poke at this and that, and especially when it culminates, you know, with Inside Baseball. I'm running through all those references, and it's just like when Inside Baseball, to me, like, I experience Inside Baseball. I'm like, oh, this is art. You're not putting out a product, right? You're not putting out a commodity. You're like, okay, I'm gonna put this out according to this formula, right? And it's gonna get this many metrics, right? And it's like, I watched that. You're like, no, you're not. You don't expect people to get this. Like, you don't expect people to get any of it. You know, like, I don't care.
Inside Baseball. Like,
yeah, it's Inside Baseball, and just like, I don't care how much into the game B world intellectual stuff. Like, no one could get this. No one has your experience, right? No one is you. No one could get all of this, and you know that, and you're still putting it out there. And like, and like personally, like what I feel from that is like that's actually something that I've been working on for a long time. And actually, now that I think about something that I'm working on with Noetic Nomads, because it's just like I always like that wordplay where like this, that, and then neologisms, and you're doing all that stuff, right? You're breaking and bending the rules, right? And I'm very good at like breaking rules and all that in certain contexts. But when it comes to communicating, like I always hated inventing new words. I always.
Oh yeah, same.
Oh really? Because
Yeah.
I mean, like yeah, just to go a little further. Like I hated inventing new words. I hated using the wrong definition. I hated not pronouncing this correctly. It's just so weird. Like I don't like. I'll go a little further, and then maybe you could give me like your own thoughts on that, because it's just like I have no problem breaking all these rules, this, that, and the other. But it's like when it comes to those, I just like I don't know. I don't know exactly what it was. It was almost like maybe part of it. I'm like I don't want to come off as stupid. I want to be like I know what I'm talking about. Or maybe I just want to make sure that I'm understood. Like for like, like with my terrible written at the start, right? I mean, obviously I haven't been doing this at all. But like when I was younger, I actually, I wrote a little bit. I did little, BS writtens and all that stuff to beats, but nothing serious. But what actually happened, right, is I was presented to people, right? And they'd be like, I don't understand what you're saying. Like, what? Like, what the hell does that mean? I'd be like, shit. Like, shit, you don't understand what I'm saying? And then I would dumb it down. And this would not just be in the writtens, right? This would be spoken, like, texting someone, writing an email, like an academic paper. I lost my artistry. I was like, no, you have to understand me. And it's almost like an egoic thing. It's like, I can't just put it out there. It's like, no, you have to understand me. So yeah, when it comes to like inside baseball and ultra, you're just going, you're expressing, especially with inside baseball, you're becoming an artist. You're differentiating. You don't have to get me. You're never going to get me. I'm just going to be me. And that's it. So I guess that's what I get from ultra.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the goal a little bit. I've asked people before and they say like, be yourself and all of that, like catching that. And that's like you and like other people are like, get a little bit more at the meat of it, but it is kind of still that thing of being uniquely yourself. So neologisms with that, I think I always pronounce it neo. It's a word that I've read but haven't ever said.
Yeah, I think neologism again. Who cares? Neologism. Who cares? Let's go with it, right?
Yeah, but like,
yeah.
So yeah, same. Like, well, speaking just in terms of breaking and bending language, like now it's like I'm full on breaking language. Like, it was bending before, but especially with inside baseball. And when I said I'm going to write like this now, it's that. And I can't help it now, right? Because if you see, like, the only reason inside baseball is as nested as it is because I have my understanding of grammar, which is not just superficial, whatever. It's like, I've talked for a good amount of time. I've listened to a lot of speakers who don't just speak in simple sentences, but speak in these complex sentences and just kind of internalizing all that. And doing the same thing of, I wonder if there's a way that I can do this that is unique and different, but not for the sake of it, right? Because this came to mind, like this circle. I think we were supposed to end, but this opens up a whole.
No. Keep going, whatever, man. Like 8 hours, just go, man. Just go.
Okay, but like this circle that I see things as a little bit. So let's say in the context of novelty music, right? Music that is meant to be comedic and funny. There is immature in terms of humor, right? So imagine a friend of yours getting an acoustic guitar and they write a silly song about COVID or something, right? With no musical experience or anything. It's just kind of little witty lyrics there, whatever. So very inelegant, very rough. But as you improve as a musician, as you get more experience playing, as you study more technically, you go down this circle until down here, I guess, where it's like competence. And you know how a song works, you know how to sing, you know what chords are, you know how to structure a song. Like now you're there. A lot of people stop there. There's a way to bring it all the way back around such that you continue learning about music and you experiment and you bend stuff and you break stuff and you bring it all the way back around to where it sounds like you have no experience at all. But it is a specific kind of no experience that is backed by lots and lots of experience, right? Yes. What comes to mind is Spike Jones. I wrote a song about him, Dance to the Hours. Like, I didn't write a song about him, but like figures like this, like riddle novelty music. It's just Weird Al Yankovic is just doesn't that guy just seem like a jokey guy? Wow, he's so funny. Do you know how much skill it takes to produce music in that many genres? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
Right? That man is a genius, and nobody cares because he has his long hair and does his whatever. He has his little shtick, but it's not like he's just like, he's smart. He knows what he's doing. And I love figures like that. Tom Lehrer, who Eric Weinstein brings up a lot.
Yeah.
Like, exact same thing where it's like, he's running poisoning pigeons in the park. Imagine if he was just, you could just write a stupid song like that. Anybody can. But to be as studious and intellectual and then just to choose after that to write a stupid song. So stupid song by stupid person, stupid. Stupid song by smart person. Now we're talking, right?
Exactly.
So same thing with taking that, you know nothing, you know a good amount, you know everything, but you're choosing to come off like you know nothing. Grammar, language, too, where it would be funny, maybe, if I wrote songs the way that I do, where I just mangle language, but like I have a high school reading level or something, and I can still just like put random words together, use big words and not what they mean. Like, it would be the same thing of just not using language right. But then there is going out and like understanding language, understanding how it works, what good grammar is, what bad grammar is, what words mean and whatnot. And then you could keep going and you're like, wait a second, grammar is fluid. I don't need to talk like this.
Exactly. Yeah.
I can use the word irregardless and it means regardless or whatever, any of those things. Like, I do have my same little hangups with that. Like, language is language. And then, so now if you look at the lyrics of Inside Baseball, just look at an individual lyric, and there are a good amount of them where just they only work because I'm using nouns as verbs, and I'm leaving a lot of stuff out. Like, I'm implying a lot of stuff too, where I'm just not explicitly saying stuff. It's a kind of stupid that you can't just dismiss entirely as stupid, because what stupid amateur musician put that long of a song out and have it be the way it is, right? Again, being like this is garbage and I don't like it, but like, I still haven't seen a track that long before. So again, novelty, I value that a lot when it comes to writing stuff. And if you see, again, I can't help but write like it now. Like, I'm literally writing words now. I'm writing lyrics now where just, they do not make sense. I'm using words in place of other words. I'm pronouncing words wrong on purpose. I did that on Inside Baseball a couple times just for the rhyme. And now I can't help but write like that. And if you look at the lyrics, they just don't even make sense unless you like know where I'm coming from, I guess. But now it's like, this is where the art can come in. And so before you break the rules, follow them, understand them inside out, follow them better than other people might be able to, so you can break them in a way that is informed by the rules themselves. Because that's its own thing. Because when I talk about the punk thing, it is like, there is a attitude of take it all and smash it all on the ground, but not in the completely uninformed kind of way. It's like understanding what I'm working with enough to spot the holes in it. And that takes a good amount of time. Like I said, I shut up for a good amount of time in these intellectual spaces, just taking stuff in before I got up and was like, okay, now I know where I want to break this. Like, now I know what I want to break. I don't want to break everything, but now I know I want to break this thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, what comes to mind when you talk about that? I'm thinking about like Jackson Pollock and Andy Warhol. It's like they knew. It's like he said, like, when you talk about like you don't know what the hell you're doing, and then you go on the circle, you kind of know, and then you get to this point where like you mastered it, and he's saying now you know what to break, and there's like this is like invisible pattern that you understand. You see the pattern, right? You know where you could break this to like, I don't know, like conform or create some sort of new pattern. And like I completely agree with you when you're like, I was silent for a while, and this is like, I see this is what I was doing. I was incubating like for like however many. I mean, look, I had a terrible life. I'm gonna say it right now. I was locked up for 4 years, like when I was a teenager, right? I was a bad kid. I was weird. If people can't tell now, I'm not your normal nice little Asian kid who gets all straight A's. I was not the stereotypical, all nice kid. I was a bad kid. I had a bad past, and like I had to take a lot of time. So when people, like, if people come across me, right, and they see some shadow coming out, that's because it's super deep and dark, like what I was into, right? So that's also like, I've come a really long way. Like I could actually say right now, honestly, without like trying to pump myself up, I've come a really, really long way. But I mean, specifically with, you know, the COVID thing, right? It's like, I'm over here. I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? And then again, I was just learning. I was listening to all these speakers again, like the Schmachtenbergers, like again, you mentioned the Zach Stein, you know, all these different thinkers at the Stoa and Rebel Wisdom. I was just sitting there, right? And I understand like all these like the people, right? You know I talk shit about them before, right? But it's kind of like it's the shadow. I see myself in them, right? It's like I see these people just sitting there and they're just like passively listening, and it's just like I understand that because I was doing that thing for a long time. So it's kind of like, you know, and it's just like I was incubating. I was just seeing like what is right, what is right, what is right. Not just necessarily what is, you know, are they telling me the correct answer? It's like what is right with me, what is right in them. You know, I'm not saying they're right. I was like, what is right in them? What's right in me? And then I'm like, boom, September hits. I'm flying. All this in a few weeks. Crazy stuff happening all the time. Now I'm like I don't want to like start talking inside baseball right now, but I'm like, now I'm participating in some projects where I'm like, I might be telling people what's up, right? You know, like I'm like, wait a minute, I was just sitting there like this, and then all of a sudden, like I launched this, and now people are like, hey, we want you to tell people stuff. I'm like, whoa, you want me to tell people stuff? Okay, and then just like I feel like part of me is like, oh my god, but then I'm like, no, I'm ready. I was preparing. I was training. I was incubating. So I'm completely with that. And just another thing I got from what you're saying is that when you talk about like language, and then how like you could scat and all that, and you feel like someone who wouldn't even speak English could get something out of it, and that just speaks to what language is, because it was like it's like song, like sound, harmony, tone that came before language, right? So when ape ancestors, they're going like. You know, they're going like that, and that is what resonates with people. That's why people hear music. They're like, I feel it in my soul. They read fucking like a 10,000 page book, like, oh, that was very good for my brain, but I didn't feel it in my soul. So yeah, that's what I got from that. Yeah,
I hear something like that, and I'm like, I wonder if there's a way you can flip that around, like a memory like that, to get kind of back to the therapy thing. Like I don't mean to be, but it's just like, I appreciate
the therapy is good for me. I'll take it all. I'll take it all.
Yeah, it's just an interesting thing to explore. I've had conversations like this where they get this deep, and people have said straight up like, this feels like therapy, and I'm just like, so I've been in therapy, right?
Yeah.
And it's not something exclusive to psychiatric offices or whatever. It's like, and this is the thing too, what I'm talking about here is what happens in therapy, where you walk in, you say, I got all this stuff going on in my life, in my past, in my head, and a trained listener who knows how to listen. They're not just going to be your friend and just hang out with you. It's like, I'm here to listen to you. My job is to listen. I'm going to listen on purpose, and I'm going to listen in the way that is very specific to the goal of helping you out. And what do? They listen to you and they shut up forever, and they just like, what happened? Let me just get all this information out of you.
Well, I mean, yeah, if I could just interject right now, I mean, because actually, like, if I actually wanted to clear that up a little bit, that time of my life was actually not that bad for me.
Okay. Oh yeah.
Like,
sure.
you know what? I'm not gonna say it was positive, but it was, part of it was almost kind of fun. Like, this is why I'm so crazy. It was kind of like look, I mean, like when I was in there, like, I was like, I wasn't getting beat up. I wasn't doing it. If anything, I was beating people. That's how crazy. Like, that's how crazy it was. I was beating people up more than I was getting beat up. So I mean, like,
I'm just going right now. Like,
I love it. Oh my god. I mean, Gabriel, we're about to hit on 3 hours. But I mean, that was I was like 45 to 90 minutes. You're like, Gabriel was like,
nah. What did I say?
Nah. He's like, nah. I can see why. I mean, good. He's just a fount of knowledge and wisdom. I mean, like, this guy is like, what, 20, 23, 24, right? 24. He just like, like, look, I was just thinking, like, before we even sat down, right, for this discussion, I was just going through your stuff, and I was like reading your annotations, and like, I saw what you're doing. I'm like, this guy, like, he's showing that you don't have to sit in a circle and like, like do circling for, twice a week for like years to be well adjusted. I mean, none of us is perfect, but I mean, like, it's just like, And to me, I think what it is about you and a lot of other people is just they're just doing what feels right for them. And it's just like, if you just do what feels right for you, right? If you're aligned with what you feel is right, you don't have to go through this therapy, because what you're doing is your therapy. What you're doing is just, it's living. It's doing what you want to do. It's doing what you feel right. So people out there, please, I hope you got something out of this. It's just like, I don't know if we could just distill it down to be like, just be authentic, align yourself, do what feels right, and then differentiate, be special, be different, whatever. But it's just like, just be yourself, be authentic. And then it's just like, once you do that, what I'm doing with Noetic Nomads, I'm trying to be authentic. I mean, trying. I'm just be authentic, right? And then it flows out from there. So again, thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else you'd like to leave our audience with? Any nugget of wisdom?
So why do me and you want things to be different? I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I know why. It's like, not because being different is great, right? Wouldn't it be great if things were different now? It's just like, I'm sick of the way things are right now.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
That's different, right? It's not like being great, novelty is all great and all that, but it's like, that really gets me going. Like, I'll literally watch videos of rappers, sometimes on purpose, sometimes on accident, just average rappers, just to like remind myself how overrun the world is with this kind of music, and how much of a, I tell myself, responsibility I have to make music like this that is forward thinking, to lean a little bit into my ego, just be like, man, like, I just watch all these whack rappers and I'm just like, man, no more.
Yeah, what is that with the one
know.
line you had when I watch a new rap? I want more me. It was like, what is it?
Literally, exactly. That was the exact thing. I wrote
it.
that after watching some like whack like rappers, and I can't say it with too much confidence, but I do know that whatever is going on right now is not enough, and it needs to be frustrating, right? Light a different like fire in people. There is a U-shaped hole in anything you're interested in. It is enough in and of itself, all the things that you're interested in, but there is a problem only you can solve in everything in life itself, right? Which is just a reframing of the question, why am I here, right? It's like, why are you here? Because there is a purpose for you, and it is somewhere out there. You don't have to like pull it out of nowhere, right? Why are you here? Because the things you love need you to improve, so they can improve, and thus the world can improve. Whoever's like watching this like right now, like, if I happened to, or either of us have happened to say something insightful that spoke to you, dear listener, it's tempting and damn near automatic for you to just nod, feel good, and then completely forget about it, right? What I really want people to do with Ultra, and it's hard to get this across, but to listen to it actively. Like I said, like to have people participate eventually, but just to listen to it, not passively, not in the background, right? And not in like a, I'm gonna sit here and like any of these intellectual conversations or whatever, and just nod and feel agreed with, right? Great, cool. But, and this is something that I do all the time now, I hope it sticks with people. Like the thing that I was saying of everything being enough and insufficient, that can get frustrating. Of like, why aren't y'all talking like this? To the point where like I was watching the intellectual conversations and I was just like, what is missing? All these kinds of like this people like me and you, where it's like we're a little bit more enthusiastic about it or whatever, like this different kind of thing. It's like, man, this is really cool and I like it and it makes sense to me. But at the same time, it's missing something, and what it's missing is me, and that should be frustrating, right? Let me leave it at that. I just want to keep going forever. I really appreciate talking to you.
Like, that's amazing, because again, like what you just talked about, right? What you touched on is like bringing your unique. Go ahead, but bringing your unique gift to the world, because because it was like what I'm doing right now, right? It's just like me speaking with people, being crazy like this. This is part of my unique gift, right? Me being here, I mean, I could be like part of it, maybe just my ego, maybe want to be seen, maybe I finally want to express myself and take my toes, but it's also like, I know like this is different. This is not here. This is in that space. This can help bring and like, boost signal from other voices like yours, right? Like if I was just some boring ass dude going through a list,
So, Gabriel, what is this ultra thing that you're doing? This is very cool. I'm like, come on, no, like people don't resonate with that. Who is gonna resonate with that, right? Even some boring ass old dude, 90-year-old dude, right? I'm sure like maybe some of them will be turned off. At least if a 90-year-old dude listens to me talking to you about hip hop, about ultra, they'll be like, at least like, okay, he was a little loud and brash, but I mean that young whippersnapper, he had some great ideas. So that's why. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this. I see my unique gift. Yeah.
Honestly, I see the same thing. Like I know that I'm a little theatrical. I have the stage experience, so like, I have these ideas, and so do you. And we know them, and we are the way we are. We are them, right? Another point to hammer home. It's like I'm not trying to do something different. I just am different in all the spaces that I am, and that's not something reserved for the special people, right? It's like everybody is, by virtue of them existing solely as their individual self, their own something, right? It's like nobody else. I'm literally just trying to word out nobody else. There's no other person like
everyone has a monopoly on being themselves, basically.
Exactly.
That's how I look at it. Yeah.
And you could make bank off that if
if that's what you're going for. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, again, to be kind of people who are just passionate, enthusiastic about this, like, I don't see anybody in the space saying like explicitly, like, take this and run with this, right? Like, be your own person. Yes. Like, I'm exasperated bringing it up. Like, I don't like the idea of people just passively watching all this stuff and getting it and being all right, now that you can just communicate all this stuff with all the same articulations and whatever as like all these other people who exist, great, cool, you can be a megaphone for them. But at the same time, it's like, where are you in all this, right? It's not like nowhere, right? Yeah. Like, there's a way to tap into that. You know how I said there was a before inside baseball and after inside baseball? Yeah. And it's like, I don't want to create a moment like this right now. Yeah. But like, this should shake you up. This shouldn't be another conversation of just like, I
feel you.
Oh yeah, great, more insight. It's like, exactly. Like, this is me talking to you right now, saying you need to get up and change your life now.
Listen,
like, to be yourself, how important that is, right?
Yeah.
And to be your own person, like that's what the world needs right now. I feel like to the point where if you are just out here being another iteration of somebody else, it's like that's part of the problem, right? In any way, the more you can do that, the more individual, the better, right? So that's my main thing. And if you ever want any advice on how to be a little bit more yourself, look into my stuff and find what's missing. Like, look everywhere and find what's missing. And understand that all the holes in all of the things that you love are shaped like you. Sure.
I mean, listen, look, Gabriel Luansing, sorry for butchering your name, Mr. Mass. Look, I mean, we're talking about like multi-hyphenate, synthesized. I mean, like, bring the counseling. You're a rapper / counselor / freaking artist / circus performer. Like, I mean, like, I'm telling you, man, I'm like, bring it. And again, you're not like, again, like putting all this together, right? Synthesizing. It's like, you don't have to train as a therapist to help people get through problems. You could just do it by doing what you're doing. And like, talk about action.
You just learn how to listen. That's all.
Yeah. And like, I have on my whiteboard, you can't see it, but it says, there are 3 words on my whiteboard. They say bias towards action. And that's what I'm doing right now. And if you look on my main page, noeticnomads.org, you're going to see Noetic Nomads is a community of dreamers and change makers. Because now, what you know this community, right? You know what this the community and like Daniel Schmachter, what he's always talking about, the war against sense making. This is the sense making community. How about we move from sense making into change making? So that's what I'm trying to do here with Noetic Nomads. Gabriel, he's talking about do it. Let's do this, people. We could get up. We could just being ourselves. It's like a lot of people are being like, I don't know enough, and I understand that. I had to go into incubation mode. People go in incubation mode, but I'm like, if you feel a calling, if there's anything, a fire within you, don't act like you're gonna figure this all out by just listen to the same people every day. I mean, maybe you'll like go like meditate on a hilltop on an isolated mountainside for like 10 years and like, oh my god, I'm finally enlightened. Maybe you could just do it by just being and just going out there and doing it, seeing what works, seeing what sticks. So again, amazing. Gabriel, thank you so much.
where can people learn more about you, get in contact, learn about all your work?
The Ultra playlist is exclusively on SoundCloud. Mr. Master. If you look up Mr. Master on YouTube, SoundCloud, Google it, probably I'll be there. I think you'll link all of that, like the SoundCloud, the Genius, and my Instagram. Like I can't say enough. Just I've been working on this thing for years, and I just appreciate whenever anybody opens up a space for me to just kind of talk at people. Like I think I got something figured, but like again, me taking all this back and being humble about it, just being like, oh man, I'm just here doing music in my room, and to hear that it affects anybody at all is just, yeah, like, all right, so this is real. We're in this together. Yeah, so thank you. I really can't thank you enough, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, thank you so much for coming on, dropping wisdom bombs. I mean, freaking giving me therapy for absolutely free. I mean, that's pretty awesome of you. And again, and then my outro is saying step up nomads because the world needs you. But also, I also want to say, Gabriel, you have so many gifts. I would love for you to share more with the world. Again, you told me you don't know what you're going to do next. But again, just whatever arises, I think that you have a lot of gifts to offer up. So that's what I want to end the show with. Thank you so much.
And so do you, dear viewer.
Yeah, exactly. All of you, step up. The world needs you. There's a U-shaped hole in this world. Only you can fit in. All right. Peace out.
The world needs you.
Yeah. All righty.
California to Belgium. She's an Adobe girl, only about her photos and shopping. Pictures, I hope I get cropped in. She's got so many options, but they're talking about a whole different topic. Well, I'm just trying to meet the one who's there when nobody's watching. She wants a sugar daddy, paying to have her flown to the tropics. So tell me you want it, you got it. And to be honest, if I had it, I would blow it, no problem. I just hope you know your time was worth far more than the price they put on it. Got a friend from elementary who just got engaged. I got friends that's already telling their kids to behave. Got friends I can't visit.